Organizing space. My sisters and my dogs, my good bros and my dogs. The pink spice and the blues with hues might try to spawn. They hitting rows with thorns and monsters crown of dawn. So won't you take my hand? All right, once we get about 10 people up in here, we'll get started and get it going. Share the live. Tell your friends we is live. I know Nina is that's the one. Never ending Nina is the one. She always will be. Period. Thanks for sharing the live, y'all. Share the live. We'll get more people in here. We got about two more people to go in here. We can keep going. We can get this thing started. Come on up in here.
There's many people in here.
Yeah. Share the live, y'all. Tap the screen. We're gonna be getting started shortly since we get a little bit more people in here.
Thank you, friend. You look good today, friend.
Thank you. You know.
That's good, man. Someone, Jay Christopher just said, "What's poppin', niece?"
What's poppin', boo? I'm just pressing buttons over here, seeing what we can do. Learning this thing. What's up, beautiful trans people in the chat? How y'all doing tonight? It's Wednesday.
Come on, hump day.
Ooh, I like this. I don't know what I did, but I like this.
Well, I don't know why it gave me 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
Oh my gosh, why does it give you 5 minutes?
I don't like it.
I don't like it.
Turn. I'm gonna skip my turn. Okay.
Oh my god.
Let's say I have 5 minutes to do something.
Boom. Listen. Oh my god. See, I'm gonna stop pressing buttons. But hey everybody, welcome to the chat. We got our 10 viewers in here. We got 11 viewers. If y'all could do me a favor and again, tap that screen, share the live, and we'll get started. Of course, we're gonna be bringing people up throughout the evening to talk about the topic that we're bringing to y'all tonight. Which is T4T Love inside advocacy and nonprofit spaces. So share the live, tap the screen, get your pen and paper out, write down your questions now when you're ready to talk, and we'll get to the nitty gritty. All right, so welcome to T4T Love. For the truth, for the joy, and for you and me. Tonight, again, we're going to be talking about T4T Love inside advocacy and nonprofit spaces and just really busting it down and getting down to the conversation. These type of conversations has come up before, whether we've been at conferences together, no matter where we've been in community and nonprofit spaces or advocacy spaces. These conversations have come up in good and in harm. And I think it's important for us to jump into it. Lain, you want to get us started?
Sure, I can do that. Absolutely. Yeah, so as Sarah was mentioning, the first conversation that we had formally was actually at BTEC, which is a Black Trans Advocacy Conference. We talked about this at the last little viewing that we had, but understandably so, it being an advocacy space, it made only sense to me and Ciora for that to be the perfect place to start having these conversations. So I know for myself, me using I statements, I grew up in predominantly white suburb. I was not around any other Black people particularly, especially not other Black trans people, and still getting into community organizing. And
that was so unfortunate for you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was so unfortunate. Like, my goddamn. But go ahead.
I mean, like, you know, like, again, like, this dictates, like, how we relation. You know what I mean? And so I think, at least for me, like, something for that, it's like I have been brought into community through the work so much that I have always been very mindful of my position in community and my access to resources, right? And the responsibilities I have and commitments I have to my community, but also to myself, and also as someone who loves Black trans people and also does work daily to support and defend Black trans people. It can be hard to not, feel like you're crossing lines at that time. And I think there's also, just in mentioning that, thinking about other conversations that have been happening recently about like power dynamics in nonprofits or just in T4T relationships or queer relationships in general.
Yeah.
While some folks might be older in age, a lot of times some folks who might be younger in age might be further developed in their queer, quote unquote, in their queer or trans identity, or be just have more established relationships in community, right? So in that regard, they may be like biologically younger, but might have more social access to social capital,
Yeah.
quote unquote, right, within the space. But I think overall, like, love, advocacy, and like community organizing and nonprofits is ultimately a workplace at the end of the day. So I hope people can keep that boundary there.
Yeah.
Like so many other workspaces, love happens in the workplace and amongst the work. It's just how we organize and commune that might look differently now, but ultimately, right, we're still very likely to fall in love with the people we are around, which are the people we come in contact with the most, which is often people we work with or for.
Yeah, agreed. And my background, I come from the hood. Around the I don't think we can say that word on TikTok, but around the ends and the inverses, and the folks in community. And I'm now in a space of like in full nonprofit work and advocacy work, running a nonprofit organization and navigating these different spaces, navigating the different conferences, navigating different leaders, navigating different relationships, in these different spaces and seeing how they are functioning or not functioning, in these advocacy spaces. I've been a part of my local scene, doing advocacy, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for about almost 20 years now, and getting into national work and being in national spaces for the last like 3 to 4 years. So, I've been seeing the ins and outs and have my own. Okay. And have my own like feedback in it. And that's what we're gonna get into tonight and talk about these things, bring y'all to the conversation, and jump into it. So yeah, so I want to talk about, and Lain, we can start with this first question and then we can invite some folks in to help us break this down and what that looks like. But I want to talk about power and proximity within our nonprofit and advocacy spaces, because some folks don't become exposed to other community members until doing advocacy and nonprofit work. And while some folks may be older, like you already mentioned, older in age, others may be further developed in their queer and trans identities. So we want to talk about what power and proximity looks like in a framework of tokenism or tokenization, gatekeeping, clout positioning. I think, clout relationships, we hear that a lot, where people are being in relationships with these high level leaders in community when there's really not a love involved. It's more of we look like a good power couple together, and really breaking that down. So let's open that up. What you got, Lain? And we can just start the conversation.
Something that I was just thinking about in regards to like tokenization and gatekeeping and clout positioning is that these are things that we both see, that we consider like done both by like the nonprofit industrial complex as well as like behaviors that we then replicate in our interpersonal relationships, right? Like specifically about how organizations might seek you out, especially predominantly white queer nonprofit, right, might be seeking you out for your Black identity or your trans identity or your disabled identity, et cetera, whatever it might be, whether that's because they are trying to launch a campaign and need a face to something, you know, they need a level of visibility, and they're not going to offer you those resources, or, you know, ultimately the same thing, but like they encourage you to join leadership so that they can qualify for, you know, their majority POC, because there's only one white person, they have a black person, then they get to apply for grants that are like, we're 50% POC, you know, whatever it might be. I feel like those same sorts of things, again, are definitely and can be definitely replicated in interpersonal relationships. And I think, like you said, in clout positioning, I think it can be very easy to enter those spaces and be uplifted for being the only one, and that those ideas can be easily instilled, right? And it can be easy to, again, end up having a partnership that ends up replicating that same sort of thing, where you're not in the relationship for the right reasons, as
Right.
you alluded to.
and and that goes into like mentorship and exploitation. I've seen a lot of like folks who are like high level leaders within community and are exploiting folks who are new to the work, and they're coming into the work with these hopes and dreams of wanting to get into advocacy and nonprofit work. And there are folks in leaders of position or in positions of leadership who are utilizing that fresh leader, you know, in the room to practically prey on them. And I've seen that happen so much. I don't think we talk about it often enough. I'm sure there are many victims of this out there that have experienced this kind of like, this is supposed to be my mentor, but they want to fuck me. And how do I navigate that without losing? And what's real about that is, how do you navigate that even if you don't want to have, you know, have sex with them without losing your potential position that you're working for, right? And it's like, how that I can imagine like that being one of the hardest things that someone, especially new into the work, would have to really navigate, is saying no and being safe with that no. And seeing a lot of our, again, our young folks coming into advocacy work, going through that cycle, especially on a national level. I really want to highlight that piece, especially on a national level, when you have more of us coming into a space from different sectors of the country or the world, and we're commingling in these spaces like conferences or like pride events, or an event you're going to support your sibling. um, and I think that really needs to be broken down, and we need to have safer spaces for folks to talk about, hey, I did not want to fuck so and so within this advocacy space, but I felt as though that I couldn't say no. Or I wouldn't be added to the room. I wouldn't be added to the email chain with new funders. I wouldn't be, you know, put in these positions to speak at an event or be a panelist at this space if I did not submit to this person in leadership. And what that can actually feel like and look like. So we want to definitely bring folks up to the to in the room and have this conversation with us. Anybody who's interested, this is now the time to jump in to join the conversation on this topic, into this first segment on power and proximity, and how we navigate that. Lain, as we're bringing folks in, did you want to share any more about that?
Man, yeah, I'm like, all I'm thinking about is like sexual harassment is alive and well, and I think and I think, you know, especially like in the queer trans community, I think, again, like specifically within T4T situations, I think it can be very hard because such a strong desire to want to be desired. And so I think it, right, even adds to like it being convoluted, where it's like I'm being desired by someone, again, who is also in a position of power, who like desires me because of like who I am, allegedly, so to speak. And not only like, right, the self gratification that comes with that, right, but also the access to all the other things as well.
Mm-hmm. Hey, brother. Hello. What you got to add to this good topic here?
Okay, so as somebody that transitioned out of like the culinary field, where HA is like very prevalent due to proximity. And you spend an abundant amount of time. I've also seen that, right? So you think kind of going into like advocacy spaces, you kind of have this expectation that because you're around community and what community usually means to us as a definition, it means that I'm safe.
Mhm.
Um, and then when that safety is then compromised, we are then damaged from either wanting to date within community, or we have these very nasty notions about a very particular sector of the community that then also leads to people being clout chasers. That also leads to people uh, knowing that they can navigate in a very particular way to get what they want, and oftentimes leave the person who may be on the loving end of it completely shattered emotionally, like, and causing emotional harm. I see a lot more emotional harm than physical harm happening these days because we're not having genuine conversations and people are not showing up as as themselves genuinely, and we're only dealing with representatives of folks
Mhm.
as well, simply because there is a scarcity of love for us, because
Mhm.
we are told oftentimes that we are not deserving of love and companionship and long-term relationships and things of that nature. So like with all of that going on, we bring that shit into community and then we start harming each other based upon proximity to what they may see as access to money, resources, or anything else.
Yeah, you ate that. Completely agree with that. I think too, along with that, and if anyone else wants to join the conversation that are in the comments, feel free to request to join this live. Tap the screen, send us over a gift if you can send us over a gift, and share the live. Share the live. Let your people know that we are here having this conversation. And to your point too, I think us as trans people, not that I think, I gotta stop saying that, we bring a lot of shit that we've learned from cisgender people just growing up, being raised by them, into our own community. And that comes with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And one thing that I'm realizing and seeing that, and I'm not just blaming cis folks for how we act. Or what we do, but we've learned, how to exist, even with each other, from them. And how do we get to a point where we're unpacking that? And having those conversations on how we're showing up to each other, especially in these spaces of nonprofit work and advocacy work. I don't think we have to go down the line. Or not go down the line, but drown ourselves in the process of success and prosperity in this work, and finding ways. Because when you think about T4T Love, yeah, there's a T4T Love where we're bumping parts. That's my favorite quote. Where we're bumping parts. But there's also T4T Love when we are just in community. That is also a part of being in T4T Love relationships and understanding how to relationship, with other trans people. And for the girls, specifically, I'll speak for the girls in this space of understanding that fetishizing trans men, fetishizing trans masculine folks is not the way to go. I see that a lot within our community, even just around other trans women that are having conversations about navigating trans men, where we're just sitting like at a table or in a corner by ourselves, and the girls are chattering, and I gotta look around like, and are these niggas that I'm talking to? Like, is these the men? Am I in the wrong section? And understanding like what that really looks like when having these conversations. And I say that with love and respect. But there's one thing about it that we have to have love and respect amongst each other, even when we're having conversations that are safe, when it's just us. But understanding safe conversations shouldn't mean toxic conversations. And I'm not going to sit around my girlfriends, and we're talking about the parts of a partner in advocacy work instead of talking about what they're bringing to the table in advocacy work and nonprofit work. If you want to talk about the ins and outs of that, add them on Instagram, talk to them. I want to get to the work, right? And I think when we're convoluting this sexual nature, right, within our advocacy work and within our nonprofit work, it blurs the lines. in a lot of sectors, because there could be two people who are amazing, great people at their work, and they bumping parts. They doing this, and then something happens, right? And then they're no longer together. And then you have these two people who could have been giving so much to community as a T4T partner in advocacy and nonprofit work that don't fuck with each other because of that intimate relationship. And then their friends ain't fucking with you, and then their friends ain't fucking with you. So we create a further divide of not being able to really, really do the work.
She said mic drop. She said the fuck. This is why I'm an NB and I just mind my own business. No. That's brilliant.
So yeah, what y'all feeling? What y'all feeling with that? We're gonna be on this subject for like maybe 5-10 more minutes. So we got some other little segments we're gonna go along in this little show, but yeah, what y'all thinking?
I just wanted to add a little bit, just about my own experience, just hearing y'all speak a little bit. I think, I first got into advocacy work when I was an undergrad. So I was like 18, 19. And the very first experiences that I had were actually like trans women who were like in their 30s, in their 40s, like trying to get at me. And it was really off-putting. And it actually scared the fuck out of me, not gonna lie. And it really scared me for a while. And so like, I think seeing them be really big in advocacy work made me really feel like some sort of pressure, like being really new and them being really established already. So a part of me did feel like I had to actually consider it more than I wanted to. So that was, something that someone brought up, and it was like, oh yeah, like that actually happened to me. Mm-hmm. And then I think there was one other thing that y'all commented on, but it just escaped my mind, so it may come back. But you said something about losing people in the community. I think now that I am dating again, that's been my biggest fear. I think when I talk to other Black trans women about my like worries and stuff, it's like I think a lot of us do know each other, or we have dated each other or something. So if something were to go wrong, then like blocked. And that's a loss of a community member and their friends. And that's like, as somebody who really cares about my work, like that's just not something that I don't really value my romantic relationships over my community work. And so it's just not something I'm willing to do. But as I continue to speak to more trans women who I guess don't really feel that way, it's making me feel better about dating within the community. But yeah. Sorry.
It's a good reflection. Yeah, thank you for that. Hey, Cowboy, do you want to add something to the conversation?
Yeah, I do. So as someone who is, I guess, just getting into advocacy, but also having a preference for older Black trans women who have already been in there for longer than I've been alive,
Mm-hmm.
Kind of hard.
Oh, you like a good cougar.
Yeah, I like a good cougar.
That guy, no way.
Like, shoot. Oh, you've been doing this since 1990 song. Damn. Hold on.
Not the 90s.
1990 song.
This I'm playing.
But like, listen, I'm like, I'm a little spring chicken. But to be honest, okay, like, in a way, I can see how some people who have been in advocacy can feel as though they are being chased and pursued because of their status. And quite frankly, that is very common in the community because people feel as though they have something to prove and might make them more masculine or feminine or more known and get ahead of other people and whatnot. But I also feel as though, like I said, y'all know the people I've dated. You know, like my ex-fiance, you know.
We ain't gonna say no name.
I'm
We're gonna
not,
keep it
but my
cute on my good
ex-fiance,
sister's
I'm not.
time.
I'm not.
All
I'm
right.
not. I just said my ex-fiance. For
I'm
those who
joking. I'm
don't
joking.
know,
Right, he said, I ain't playing.
she's pretty in there. But I feel like
It
as an
wasn't
adult,
connecting, Jay or Jaws. Try one more time.
as an adult, as a someone who's supposed to be there to help the community, I've learned that even though we split, I still support. I'm mature enough to know you were doing the work. This isn't about us, so there's no reason for us to stop working together, because of what had happened or whatever. And I think a lot of the times people don't feel as though or a lot of the times, obviously we don't ever know the circumstances of why people break up, but at the end of the day, there's a difference between personal and professional. They say that all the time in regular 9 to 5 work anyway. You can't date your coworkers, but at the end of the day, it's about maturity and knowing what's best for the community, I guess, in a way. And like I said, I'm all about love and support. So I don't care what happens between us personally. I'm always going to support. It don't matter who. But it's also about communicating those boundaries and whatnot in the relationship, so that in the event it does end, you already know what's up. And if you aren't prepared for that, don't even get in it to begin with.
Oh,
That's a good point.
He said, make sure you got that contingency plan. You got that next step, the succession plan.
Yeah,
What's happening?
of course.
And that's real. That's super real. And I'll add to, and we'll jump to. I know, brother. I don't know what's going on, John. It keeps it's looking like it's connected. Okay, you said your service is a little. Okay, we'll keep trying to join, and we'll try to get you up here. But I want to speak to the point you made too, because I've definitely experienced this as someone who's still relatively new to the national spaces and just for transparency, I typically date trans masculine folks and are, trans men. And I have definitely come across folks who have been attracted to me because of my status of work, who have not necessarily are not really I would say not really integrated into those circles that we see typically in the advocacy spaces. And we all, I think, those on the line now, we recognize there are those cliques and those groups and those folks that are around in advocacy and how they move, how they work together, how they don't work together. And I've definitely been in positions where I gone into it and not even naive, but just being new to this space and wanting to be around us and getting to know a few guys. And after getting to know them, it really was about I'm likable as fuck, but it was still about their proximity to the work that I do. And now I'm in a space, and I'm not saying it's completely cut off, but I'm not really interested in dating inside the nonprofit and advocacy space anymore. I'm a little turned off. I don't like people in my business. I don't want my relationship to be the forward facing best trans relationship in the world. I'm not looking for the advocacy couples. It's not giving that for me. So it's again, I'm not cut off to it, but I'm turned off by it. The idea, I'm finding myself putting a lot of my brothers in the friend zone in the advocacy space because it's just I don't even want to do this. Because it's just I just don't want to go there. But still the points of, I've had some public breakups where I was known and the other folks, my partner was known. And it's just too much. So I wanted to add to that space just from my perspective is just being in it. You meet somebody you like, it's all well and good, and that advocacy work, especially if your partner also does advocacy work, I think is another thing that we don't talk about, because when do we get to breathe in the relationship from advocacy work if you and your partner are doing advocacy work? Bitch, can we talk about a tree? And not about getting financial resources for the community. Can we go sit in the grass and feel the grass between our toes, please. But I think that's real. And I think if you are in a relationship that is like T for T and y'all both doing the thing, I don't think that's, it can't happen. Absolutely it can happen. But having some boundaries within work and within your love life. So I'll shut up and let anybody else who wants to add in.
I would say boundaries are important in whatever relationship you have anyway. So you setting the tone, the boundaries, and everything with what you got going, is a respectful thing because, you know, a lot of the times nowadays people do just jump into whatever looking for who looks best or like they don't be thinking about the nitty gritty. Like relationships take a lot. Like I'm not necessarily saying a lot. Like it's exhausting because the right relationship there will be work to be put in it, but it shouldn't be draining.
Mm-hmm.
It's because a lot of us have not seen a healthy relationship and what that can actually look like as an example. Um, Hearing a lot of times that like I have other couples come up to me and Trinity all the time and say that like how do y'all do this and like child day by day like that's a very grandpa ass answer, but it I now understand the meaning behind taking things day by day and also like constant communication, y'all. Like with us, like I have my own nonprofit, they have their own business, and they work for an agency right here in our city. So like when we talk about two people that are in a relationship that are doing the absolute fucking most within advocacy, like that is, ooh, I don't recommend it. It's ghetto. I don't recommend it. It's ghetto. But if you have it if you have the maturity, if you have the communication, if you have the stability within your relationship to do that, anything is possible. Because yeah, um, mm-hmm, I'm gonna leave it at that.
I'm screaming.
Agreed.
What I could say is, child, I was talking about this a little bit before the call started, but I love dating my other advocacy babes. Nothing gets this pussy going like someone who's down for the fight, honey. Who we breaking out of prison together? Somebody gonna be writing the map, someone be driving the car. We don't gotta do the same, we don't gotta do the same role in the movement, but at least for me, I wanna know, and I know another big part of that really has to do with values alignment. You know what I mean? And I think that also, again, speaks to like the larger relationship for me and myself. Like in my relationships, I am friends with a majority of my exes. And a big part of that is like I move with intention into relationships and I try to navigate the relationship as like this is someone that I'm potentially going to have a lifelong relationship with. It might not always be a romantic relationship, but if I want this person to do better, like how do I support that, right, in the long term? And I think that was also brought up in the sense of like T4T Love outside of romantically. I appreciate King Court's mentioning like because I definitely identify this way too, working with a network of specifically Black trans people, but feeling like community is so much more important than romantic relationships. At least where I am currently, where I have been single for the past 2 years. At least for me, I've been so much more deeply invested in building and deepening T4T platonic relationships, or just really looking at relationship anarchy and thinking about how I like love and invest in other trans people, and specifically Black trans people, whether that be romantically or otherwise. Because yes, I know for me, like again with the power, like or access to social capital, the last thing, something I'm always mindful of or always worried about is anyone ever feeling like they can't have access to a space or resources after a breakup. Right. And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
right, I feel like, right, for me, I feel like I'd rather just remove myself or not even end up in that situation because I don't want you to feel like right now that something that is made for trans people, you somehow don't have access to it because of me specifically or however, whatever you have told yourself, right? So I know for me, I don't know about anybody else, but me being in a position where I was providing direct resources, we knew in community like there was no way you were not going to like shit with you. Like we knew people were going to hook up with people that they were in community. You know what I mean? Other trans people, And so for us, it was like if a partner of yours or whatever needs a resource, you just have someone else do those resources. You know what I mean? Like I can't, I'm not going to bump you up anywhere, but I am definitely going to let you know of this resource as a fellow trans person. And if you need a referral, I will let you know who can do it for you. It can't be me, but it can be someone, and it can be someone that I can tap, you know, and that's something I had to be mindful of. That's just relationing in any capacity. You know what I mean? It's always being mindful of like, is this nepotism or am I just relationing?
Yeah. Can I add to that really quick? And I'll let you jump in, King. For those who run nonprofits, for those executive directors, for those managing programs where you are serving trans people, stop having sex with your clients that are trans. That is not it. That is a power play that is disgusting and that we should never put ourselves in positions to do. If you are serving trans people and those coming into your housing facility, into your program, wherever you're supervising trans people and serving trans people as another trans person, do not engage in sex with them. Even if they're flirting with you, even if they're giving you your life, honey, do not engage in anal sexual activity because that is predatory behavior, no matter how you look at it. So I just wanted to add that piece. Go ahead, Kate.
You said I just wanted to click insert.
That was that was a good commentary, good addition. No, I think just like feeling very similar to you, Avery. It just makes me wonder, like, when do we get like when do we get to have the relationship? Like, when do we get to be in a space where we feel like we can have that T4T relationship if we're always dedicated to our community work and always feeling that like we would prefer to stay out of that, you know, over out of the like the romantic side of things because of all the things that we mentioned. But it's also like I don't know, like I still want that though. You know, like I still want that relationship. And it can be very difficult to balance the two because I've also been single for the past couple years. So it's like, okay, like cool. And it's been cool. Like I really don't mind continuing being single, but you know, it's like I I did always see that for me though, like having a good, healthy, you know, relationship where we can like meet each other where we are and, you know, express, you know, stuff, you know? So I think just like finally meeting someone else who is on that same wavelength, like how do you think about your romantic, you know, future?
Good question.
Right. How do I? I'm
Woo!
like, it is vast. That's how I think of it. I think a Bandit mentioned part of it being that we haven't had good examples. I always remind myself, like, you got to be the change you want to see in the world, baby. A lot of this liberatory T for T stuff, all the things we doing for ourselves, like, it hasn't been done in the same way. It hasn't been documented. There ain't no guide. There ain't no shit. You know what I mean? Like, we making it up as we go. And I think for me, a part of this journey is just being very open minded in what how love looks like for me, how it feels, how it shows up, where I follow it. Um, and a part of me feels like, you know, in a way that is what has added to me remaining single in a way. I'm like, is this just me figuring out relationship anarchy? Am I like aromantic? Am I just never gonna be in a relationship? I don't know. But I feel you at the same time of like, you know, like where's my love story? Like where's my little like I always have my little T4T love, little something, you know what I mean? But I think I I have hope that it is coming and it looks revolutionary and it looks and feels like unlike anything I have felt so far.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
I love that.
I'm like so cheesy and corny, but that's
Yeah.
that's
No, that
that's
was
where I
cute.
am right now.
Very cute.
No, I feel the same too. I think I'm afraid, if I could be honest, especially like just based on what I talked about earlier. I think I'm afraid. I think I am
Yeah.
um afraid to have to balance work and my love life. Because I love the work that I do in nonprofit and advocacy in the advocacy space, but I also love harder, with the potential partner I would have. And there's been times I've been in relationships where I was the problem. Come on, accountability, where I was working too much and didn't have the time for my partner as much time as I wanted to. And vice versa, have felt that where my partner is deep in advocacy and doing everything else for the community. But when it came down to me, I'm like, "Nigga, what about me? Like, what's going on? You going to the event tonight? I want to go to dinner tonight." So there was like these balances, and it just puts up fear. And I've talked to other trans women that are on the level of thinking that I'm on, and who does the same work. And we all feel the same. It's just like this constant worry. Is someone after us? Is someone trying to get our little bit of coins? Is someone trying to break our hearts? So these are things, but welcome to the conversation, Angel.
Thank
And
you.
y'all, as we're talking, can we just please say like our names, pronouns, where we're at on the map, and Ciara, she, they, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Angel, I would love for you to add some context to the conversation.
Yes, yes. Good day, everyone.
Hello.
So my name's the Honorable Angelina Nordstrom. I use they, them. From the Shy. And I mainly was listening, so when you invited me to join, I said, let me join, let me put in my 2 cents. I wasn't really going to say too much, but what you were saying about not having doing a lot of work and maybe not having enough time for the relationship is very important to provide the time that that the relationship would need so that it can flourish. And but not even so much just that, but just it's a matter of mastering the concept of having a balancing act, having a balance of work and life so that we can really show up as our best selves in any space that we're in, and just being as intentional about it. Sometimes you may have to give a little more time to your work, and other times you may have to give a little more time to your relationship or to just the home structure to ensure that home is taken care of first and foremost, especially if your significant other and you also share your home. And so it's just a matter of mastering the balancing act and ensuring to be intentional about when you're at work, you're working, that's it. When you're not at work, then that's your personal time. And those from in the workplace have to respect that so that you can be able to sometimes compartmentalize the things that you're thinking about from work that still are unresolved. And vice versa, when you're at work and you're worried about, oh, I gotta worry about taking care of whatever this is at home, and when you're focusing on work. So it's just a matter of mastering that and just ensuring that you are fully present for the things that are right in front of you.
I appreciate you saying that. Also, I'm like, Bandit, that makes me think, Bandit, you think you mastered that shit yet? You know, Bandit said absolutely no, fuck that. Because I was like, I stand by that. And also, the first thing that came to mind was, what about all the black trans people who are self employed, who are basically their own bosses? Right. And it's honestly, it's not even, right. It still comes down to boundaries, but I'm like, it's not even about other people getting in our way or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
us not being able to find the time or designate that ourselves because we're the ones that make our own work schedules, you know what I mean, or fill our time. It's not someone else that's telling us where we gotta be. We just always find ourselves pouring from an empty cup somehow.
Or working multiple jobs just to make ends meet to
Yeah.
supplement what you're not actively making. So, like, yeah, it's a balancing act. And no, I haven't mastered it. I fumble sometimes, but luckily for me, I have somebody that's like, oh, okay, I got it. Get up, baby. Put some neosporin on the boo boo. We good.
That's and I talked about this on our last live too, trauma bonding. And how we find ourselves trauma bonding a lot in relationships, and especially in nonprofit and advocacy work, because we're all hurting, we're all depleted. our cups are empty, we're trying to fill them. And when you find someone who has that same as empty cup, y'all think y'all can pour these things in to have a full cup, and it don't work like that. Both of y'all cups end up just being depleted, and I think I'm gonna always say that as we move along with these sessions or having these conversations. Is it's just like, if we can, it's hard, but if we can not base our relationships off of trauma bonds, when we're meeting folks, I think it produces a healthier relationship, or it can produce a healthier relationship, to understand what each partner or partners, triggers and all those things are when it comes to trauma and coming into those relationships. And like, girl, if you come from sex work, your partner comes from sex work, there's trauma with sex work, right? That shows up in many ways, with sexual ways, it comes up in mental ways, all types of things that I don't think we always have a chance to sit down and unpack. Hell, finding a therapist is hard enough, but to sit down and unpack like what that actually did to you, being an active sex worker and getting into a relationship with people where you might be a sex worker or you might not be a sex worker, and how both partners or all partners are feeling about that. So trauma bonding, I think it's very important. Hey y'all in the comments, hey y'all, what's going on? Um, so yeah, I think you want to we could switch down into since I was talking about trauma, I guess, within the nonprofit, and just trigger warning for everyone. But harm, silence, and survival. Sexual, or I'll say SA on TikTok. SA and exploitation in community spaces, I think, is something we talk about, that comes up like when we're at conferences. I'm just keep it real. Like, it comes up when we're at conferences, somebody did something to somebody, and we're all on the phone, we're texting about it, or the conversation's happening in the conference app, or folks are outside talking about it. And how does that actually, hmm, how can we build safer spaces, but also safer spaces to report these things? Um, as trans leaders, as folks getting into leadership work and advocacy work, how can we be conducive um, in the reporting and believing victims? And I say believing victims, I know we're in this culture where we believe victims, but also within our trans community, we like to kiki. We like to act like everything's a kiki, everything's a joke. Not all the time, but a good majority of the time, when we're just sitting in the living room with some of our good girlfriends, or boyfriends, or them and days. How do we actually create safe spaces from SA? Is that even possible? So I'll open the conversation to that. Hey, everybody in the comments, if you want to join the live in this conversation, please do hit a request. We'll get you up here. This is T4T Love. We're talking about T4T Love within nonprofit and advocacy spaces. Tap the screen, share the live. But yeah, let's jump into that conversation.
Okay, I guess I can kind of hit this off. So I don't think we can prevent it from happening. We can do all the planning, we can do all the organizing, we can have all the intentionality in the world. But if we're not having the actual conversations about people's behaviors, if we're not talking about consent before, during, and after, like in spaces where we can have actual conversations, like we've been in spaces where it's been a safety briefing for everybody. I want to see safety briefings. Lord have mercy. Where's my brain? Briefings.
Oh, oh, okay, all right.
Safety briefings. Consent. As long as it's consent, I don't give a
Give me
damn.
space.
But I want to see them broken down by gender identity so that we can actually have these conversations like, no, this is not okay to have in this space. Like you should not be doing X, Y, or Z. And also making sure that you have consent all the way through, depending on your position. That's another thing. Depending on your position, there's going to be a very different conversation.
And you explain position, brother.
So, position for folks who are not aware, it's whether you are the top, bottom, or verse in one sense, where that means you do somebody does the bending. Child, somebody does the poking, somebody gets poked, and somebody might like it a little bit of both. Okay? Somebody might like vanilla, somebody like chocolate, somebody like vanilla and chocolate together. Okay? Boom. So, depending on your position, those conversations are going to look different. If you are the receptive partner, if you enjoy penetration, then that getting consent is also going to be a thing for you too. Whereas we don't talk about that, because just sitting on it without consent is still not getting consent.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
So because listen, I had to be told. I had to be told because I'm a little domineering. I had to be told. But those are the kinds of conversations that you have. Like, okay, is this going to be okay if we engage in this kind of act? Like, explicitly, maybe even having a mock kind of conversation happen to where people can get comfortable with having conversations, because I do feel like we avoid talking about doing the mattress dance in the first place. But that comes from years of religious ties to the Black church and the Black shame around sexuality and things of that nature. Like it's deep. So like it's a part of us, but we have to do the work to kind of like break that down. So one of the ways is like maybe break these spaces down and have deeper conversations than just like, oh, just get consent, because it's not working.
Okay, that what you saying that just made me think about like I basically just wrote like everybody wants to be like sexually liberated, but nobody wants to like everybody wants to be in like a sexually liberated space, but like nobody's ready to like do the work to like liberate their mind actually,
Mm.
right? Like, and I think so much thinking about specifically like sexual violence, whether it's like within community or not, like a lot of it has to do with like we only have carceral systems in place, like, right? So are you specifically talking about like how do we do reporting, like in what instance has like reporting within our community like ever done anything like necessary, not like done anything good, but you know what I mean, like ending
Yeah.
up on a list or like being reported on or something in that sort of sense has generally only caused harm to our community. So I think in a lot of senses, like, right, it is hard to identify ways to come forward because we haven't created a society or culture or mechanisms that provide incentives for people to come forward when they have caused harm. You know, like our
Mm-hmm.
society only supports people to turn away generally. Like, right, there's not a lot of support that is offered for people who cause harm, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
will honestly identify as someone who has been abusive or has abusive relationships. It's much harder to identify as someone who supports abusers getting over abusive behaviors than identify
Mm-hmm.
as someone who supports survivors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't hit as hard to be like I support abusers as it does like I support survivors. You know what I mean? But
Well, I
ultimately,
think
we need to create spaces like that or mechanisms in order to have more spaces to have those conversations, right? Or to call in people who cause harm within our
mhm.
community.
Well, I think what you're getting at is restorative justice
Well,
and how we don't have like intentional conversations about restorative justice. And that doesn't mean everyone's ready for restorative justice. Or everyone's welcome to the table of restorative justice. It depends on what happened. But
like you
we're,
can't you
we're,
can't make someone be accountable.
no, not at all. They have to also, in the restorative justice practices, they have to be also a willing participant to be holding themselves accountable, for whatever took place and standing in that. And yeah, I just wanted to add that. I'll let anybody else who wanted to add to it.
I wanted to piggyback off of what Avery was saying too. I think, I guess both Bandit too. I think overall the Black community has an issue with this, like a cognitive dissonance about our own liberation, right? I think a lot of us want to be liberated, but don't actually want to do the work. I think a lot of us want to be liberated. A lot of us have, say that they are pro-Black, say that they are BLM, say that they are this, and that, but they don't actually understand, the master's house will not, the master's tools will not dismantle the master's house, right? They don't understand that. And I think that, like, it is a much larger problem. And I think that because we as, like, triple, quadruple, intersectional identities. Like we do have to face that at its core.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, ultimately, to answer the question, I don't know. I don't know if we can have a space. I don't know what to do. I think conversations are helpful, of course, but like everyone has been saying, like people will not grow unless they want to grow. People will not take accountability unless they want to take accountability. They will not change unless they want to change. So I think that we can call people in as much as we like, and I think that as people who believe in restorative justice, we can always practice, how to do it better within our community. But to say that there's a surefire answer, I just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm as y'all are talking about that, and as we're talking about that, I'm thinking of an additional, like, I guess, in addition to the question, how do we protect future victims? How do we protect those that will be vulnerable to being SA'd within nonprofit and advocacy spaces? Somebody got some feedback. It's actually
I got.
Lover
Cowboy.
boy in the damn car.
Yeah.
Go mute
I'm in.
for 1 second,
I'm in part. All right.
please, and thank you. Thank you. Um, how do we also advocate and protect the victims of SA within nonprofit and advocacy spaces? Because I'm sure we all know somebody that something has happened to: trans woman, trans man, non-binary person. I think there's also this misconception, I'm going to speak for the girls, that trans women can't be SA'd by particularly trans men when they absolutely can, and vice versa. The girls have their hands in essays, and non-binary folks have their hands in essay as far as the victims and perpetrators. So how do we, like? And I'm with you. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I'm just like, where do we go? Because this, and I asked this question because we are going to continue being around each other, whether it's just within community, or whether it's in conferences, or whether it's like pride events, or events that are just for trans people, right? And trans and non-binary folks. And how do we advocate for, potential new victims that could potentially be in this space, be this perpetrator who looks fine as hell, not knowing that they're into that behavior in community. How do we raise the flag?
I mean, I don't think anything happens like completely in the shadows. I feel like there is somebody, like, I feel like, ooh, and this, and I may be a little wrong, but I feel like every abuser has a friend. And I feel like it is, I do feel like it is the responsibility of the people who know that there are things that are happening to not be complacent, and not try to keep those things under wraps because they are friends with that person, and understand that a space is larger than, whatever they got going on. I think that it is really hard because we like to, kind of speaking on what Avery spoke about earlier, is that like we don't really want to keep anybody from any space, right? We don't want
Right.
to exclude people. That automatically just feels really wrong to us. And I think the same thing with like, I mean, I guess betraying or calling people out or doing whatever. But I think that we need to be more honest about, you know, who we are in relation with, what they are doing to other people, how we could protect our spaces. Um, and I think ultimately having more conversations like this, where we have people who actually, you know, care, that can be brainstorming, and kind of bouncing ideas off of one another, because I don't think any singular person has all the answers. I think we as a community having spaces like this will be how we come up with answers. That's it.
For sure. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. I resonate with that a lot.
Yeah. I'm like, all I keep coming back to is we keep us safe. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
in so many other instances, like what I've also seen is like when something happens, especially within community, like, people instantly want to go public. And I think that in itself is also a thing. It's like taking time, at least for me, like King Courts had said, like at least in instances for me that has come up, like I've always tried to contact the people closest to, especially when like I try to move with abolitionist values, but I know the carceral state is deep in my heart because I've been
Mm,
born in America. Like what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like if I have been violated or wronged or something, especially sexual violence, like it's understandable for so many survivors to want to feel justice in some way, and get some retribution. And I think for me, so much of it is also about just figuring out how to walk the line and still meet my needs and navigate being in community without going a route that feels carceral, but also still brings attention, like needed attention, right? And change behavior. And that always seems like in those aspects, going to the people closest to the person who has caused harm realistically would be the people who would be best situated to hold them accountable or help them in changing harmful behavior.
Yeah. I also forgot to. My name is Jasper. My pronouns are he, they. I am located in Atlanta, Georgia.
thanks. Thanks, Jasper. And when you said we keep us safe, I automatically thought the friends of predators keep them safe too. And I don't know if that's enough for me. I don't know if, you know, I don't know. Because again, I've had my share of call out of where I called folks out for shit they did. And even when I'm just advocating for my friends, my siblings, right, in community. Um, I don't know how effective that was, uh, per se, but I, for one, can't be in a space where someone's like sexually assaulting people and raping people. And I don't, if they are not willing, again, to come to the table for that restorative justice approach, I don't think they should be a part of the space. That's me. I'll use I statements there. I don't feel like they should be a part of this space. Because especially if there is no intention on accountability. Why are we having them around? Why are we exposing them to younger people in the work, into advocacy space? Because we are always going to have a younger generation that is coming up behind us in this work. And how are we making this safe space, or the safe space, the space safe for them as they're coming into this work? If we're not doing anything about it, if we're not saying anything about it, if we're not gatekeeping um, them away from these spaces that are where they have access to multiple victims.
Mhm.
So what are we doing if we're not actually saying something and not just talking about it. Yeah, we could talk about this shit till we're blue in the fucking face. But if there is no plan established, I don't care if it's in your city, state, county, if it's just a small little area and you talking with your trans siblings here, you talking with your trans siblings here, or the folks that are running these conferences around the country are having these conversations on what this actually looks like and bringing us into the conversation on what this actually looks like. If there's no steps in place, that's like okay. And I believe in the abolitionist framework. Um, but even with the abolitionist framework, there is nothing in place right now that can actually not include the police. So, and I know folks are working on that in their individual areas, but when I think about it on a larger scale, and when folks are even having these conversations about community police, it's mostly who gets I'll speak for me in my area. It's cis folks who get the spotlight around abolitionist work and community policing. And I think about just cis folks in that position of community policing with trans folks. So it's just like, but there, if there is no system or community accountability system set up to protect our folks, then what are these conversations? What do we keep having these conversations for if there aren't going to be any tools created to actually protect our folks? And now I'll shut up. I went on a little tangent, but yeah.
I'm screaming. I'm thinking, I'm like, damn, I don't know, Ciora, but it sounds like you got a very specific situation that's coming to mind for you. Because I'm like, oh, it's feel
No,
awfully specific.
I think this comes from being
Because
a
ultimately, right, it's about the people in position of power. Because if you have access, if you know someone is in a position of power who could have access to other people like that, y'all got an obligation and a duty to protect your community and get that person the fuck out of there, point blank, period. I don't care
yeah.
what good they offer to the
And to
community.
share the tea with
You
the
can teach
rest of
someone
us.
else. Not share the tea, but you can teach. Here's the thing: people be because of the social clout, they be thinking, "Oh, there's only been one of us, and this is the person who." Honey, it's called professional development. How many black trans people do we got who would happily be in those positions, not touching up on people, not harassing people, not be doing that, who could easily and happily be taught those skills and taught how to community organize and build relationship? We do not need to be keeping no predators and no position of power just because
Mhm.
they've done some work.
And that's where it comes from. So that's where I think I'm thinking about it as you said that. I was just unpacking it. I think a part of it comes from me being a girl who is just being exposed to the national trans leadership spaces. And I'm seeing the beautifulness of it, but I'm also seeing the dark side of it. And I'm seeing leaders that are platformed in high spaces in leadership that are literally taking advantage of younger people. And it doesn't even have to be sexual, it could be mental, it could be tokenizing, it could be, all these things that come and still involved with T4T love. Because again, T4T love, you can be intimate or you can just be in community. That's still T4T love. And how that is showing up. And it used to keep me up all night until I just realized I can't fix every fucking thing. I can't fix everybody. This is just going to be, some folks what it is. But I still feel as though, as a leader in community, that I have a responsibility. And I know I'm not the only one who feels that, of having some type of responsibility to attempt to protect the kid. And not even just the kids, like folks our age, our elders, right? Folks with disabilities within our community, all the intersections that our community falls within. How are we building a community that will last before the house is burned to the fucking ground? Um, And yeah, that's yeah, that's where it came from. That's where it came from. I'm just tired of seeing that shit. I'm tired of seeing it, and people get away with it. They'll sexually assault someone one day, honey, and next week they're doing a panel on how to protect victims, and it's just
Stop it,
what,
girl. Delete, delete, delete.
what happened? So yeah, yeah. If anyone else wants to add anything into this, please do, and we'll keep rolling along with our topics tonight.
Those folks absolutely need to be kicked out the space. Okay, like you I mean, teachers
How do
out
we
of
kick them out?
school should not be teachers. You know, if you are working at a elderly home and you're abusing elderly people, you should be fired. You know what I mean? So like, if you are doing trans-based community work and you're abusing trans people, you shouldn't be doing community work. You are now harmful to the community. You are now contradicting all the work that you think that you're doing. You're being contradicted by your actions, your direct actions. And I would also like to point out that like some people seek out those spaces because they are abusers. So, you know, like I think that if that is the type of space that we're talking about, then like absolutely they need to be kicked out.
Well, there's a lot of people that need kicked out right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Right
When I
now,
come to
I
as
don't
we're
doubt it.
talking. Yeah.
immediately delete, escape, control,
Yeah.
alt delete, get rid of all them hoes. Ain't no way.
But
I definitely
I also want to add to that the fear that comes behind, especially in our trans community, and this is just what I've seen. The fear that comes within e- erasing someone or calling them out or holding them accountable, especially for people who ain't built like that, especially for people who are new to the work, who feel as though they're going to lose opportunities if they don't mess with this person, if they don't work with this person, who feel honored if a sexual predator in community, I say, I don't already said it, if TikTok gonna cut me off, they're just gonna cut me off. But a predator within community and they grab that younger person's hand and all the younger person or the person new to the work is seeing this person is making it, they got a platform, they got 100,000 plus followers, you know, people love them, they're always on every panel, they're on every speaking situation. There is a point of intimidation, and not for me. This is conversations that I've had with younger folks, younger trans folks in the work, of where I'm calling a bitch out on Facebook or Instagram or something, and then they jump in my inbox like, "Girl, you right, girl, but I wish I could say something. I can't say nothing because of X, Y, Z," and that burns me the fuck up. Like I get it, but that burns me the fuck up because for those of us that who are about that life, we still risking a lot too. We still risking a lot too when we're calling these folks out, no matter how it looks, you know, when it's happening. So to your other point, how do we pick them out? That's what I'm curious about. Like, what is the goal? Like, if they come in the room, do we got security there? Like, oh no, baby, you gotta go, or do we got some the big girls in the back who's gonna be like, oh no, no, baby, you gotta go, and the big guys in the back, and the them and days in the back, like, no, baby, you gotta get out the room. How do we safely do that? Because we like to tussle as a trans community too, no matter where we at.
Baby,
Like,
we don't give a damn.
so
Okay. We
how?
would wasn't we voguing and fighting at the White House all at the same time at one point? Child, listen,
Yeah,
we don't give a damn where we at.
yeah.
We gonna be us everywhere. But
Loverboy Adonis in the comments says, "Stop showing up for them. Lack of support will take away their power."
come on,
Right.
strategy. Come on,
Mm-hmm.
strategy. I'm also thinking like if they're showing up to places where they've caused harm, immediately that place needs to be informed, and then they need to do the things so where it doesn't have to be community. They can be asked to leave, so that's not even one of those things. If we're already having the whispers within community, that means that they have a known reputation. If that reputation starts to precede them at this point,
I'm glad you said that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that when they register to show up to events, they need to be refunded their money and asked not to attend. And if they do at that point, then they will have to deal with the carceral system because we will not have you here. If
Mm-hmm.
they then think that they're still going to then invade space, then I think we need to start talking about what community security looks like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Agreed.
from because I don't want us to have to fight if we can hire somebody else to do it.
Agreed.
So we got security right there. Take care of that. I mean, I had to do that recently in a space. I had to be like, look, this person is not supposed to be here and is of concern to not only the people we came with, but to other people that are up in this space. So we gonna need you. They said, can you point out some identifying features of this person so we can have them removed? Thank you. And we'll write their name down to make sure that if they try to come back the next day, we'll have it noted. So sometimes saying a thing does do a thing. But yeah, I think it is a matter of, like, right, are we talking about, well, I guess you were talking about, like, how do we prevent things from happening? Because it's like, at the end of it, if we're talking about restorative justice, we're talking about what do the people who have been harmed, not about the people who potentially could be harmed, because that could be anybody and anything, and that is about a much larger campaign of societal education of preventing harm from that happening at all. But I think, like, yes, as was mentioned, if someone comes into a space who definitely don't need to be in the space, everybody needs to turn they back and shun the fuck out that person. Sorry, honey, this is not the place. We're not saying you can't be in community, but you damn sure can't be here.
Hmm. I'll propose another scenario to this, and we'll move on to our next little segment piece. But what if that word gets out and it's not true? What? How do we work through that? We've experienced it where a topic was set up. They said this person did this, that, and the third, and sometimes it comes out this isn't true. Yes, we believe the victims 100% over here. However, when the facts hit the table and the facts ain't facting, how do we navigate that? Because that's still like ruining someone's uh what am I trying to say? Reputation within community. Um how do we
I'm guessing in the same way that we handled the situation with disbarring them from community or having them removed from a space, also then ushering a giving them the apology for first of all, because that's not something that most people can actually come back from.
yeah.
Um,
Batcave says sounds like just say no to restorative justice or people disposable.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I don't think every space is to deal with every problem. I also don't think every person for every space. Especially for dynamics that you have established. You can't be forever like anybody who has ever done this ever, anybody who has ever stolen from the store cannot come to this party and then just hope that everybody who come to that party has just never stolen from the store. You know what I mean? Like there's still sets of conditions of which you have to like trust the people who are engaging in that space. And if you have set up agreements for that space and know someone has come in who has violated them previously or has a chance of violating them currently, well, then you got to figure out, do we wait until the person does violate the space agreements, or do we preemptively try to keep the space safe by not allowing them in the first place?
Mhm.
I think that's for every individual, you know what I mean, to decide when the time comes.
Any other thoughts on that? Jump in the comments too. Thanks y'all for staying with us on this important topic. Tap the screen, share the live if you can. It's free to do that, y'all. Y'all can tap the screen for free. You can share the live for free. You can also spend 2 cents and send us over a little gift. Um, we appreciate it all so we can keep doing this. But yeah, any other thoughts on that before we jump to our next little segment?
I also want to say, and just talking about some things, I feel like, I mean, from my experience, people people do bounce back one way or another. People do bounce back. And I'm like, maybe not specifically in the situation of someone who has been falsely accused, because I don't think necessarily an entire reputation can just be ruined in that sense, maybe within certain spaces, but it is so easy for people to pack up, move to another city, move to another state, block people, and become in a new digital space, create a new digital profile, become a whole new person, do all sorts of things. It is so easy. It is so easy now. They pretend like the government's on our ass with our name changes, like they know where we are, but it's just so easy to
Yeah.
just switch around and do some shit and replicate that behavior somewhere else. You know, so I think it is very easy for people to bounce back
Yeah.
one way or another.
And folks do that all the time. They'll cause harm in
Exactly.
it. They'll cause harm in a city or state, steal the organization's money, honey, and then move to another whole city and state, honey, and work for another organization to do it to them,
Still get
but
hired.
and still get
And
hired,
still get
baby.
hired on name alone.
Mm. Go ahead, King. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just listening to y'all, but um, I don't know. Like something kind of made me think about like when I had first moved to Atlanta, and I had went to this LGBT club, and the main person, like I guess the host or whatever, she made it very clear like consent is important, like is not just important, it's necessary, and just I don't know. I felt like if anything were to have happened to me in that space, like, and I were to have told her, she would have shut that shit down immediately. And I think just having somebody, like, I didn't even know her. Like, we have became friends later on, but it was just like having somebody that I knew as soon as I walk into this space, I can speak to this person if anything were to happen to me.
Hmm.
I know that they would have my back. And I think having a person like that would be beneficial in all spaces. But another question also came to mind is like, how do we keep track of these people? Right? Like, as you are, as we're talking about them moving, packing up, creating different identities and different. I've seen it happen in real life too, multiple times. Multiple times. Literally, an abuser when I lived in New York, they'd be smeared. Next thing you know, they're in California. Brand new identity, brand new relationship, brand new friends. I'm like, who is this person? Brand new tags, just everything, just brand new person. Right. And it's like, even outside of that, like, I may be new to spaces and like y'all may know the tea and somebody who's new may not know the tea about certain
Right.
people or whatever. Like, how do we keep track of the abusers in the community, of even people who have falsely accused individuals. I think we should keep track of them too. Um, so I don't know.
What
Um,
a Google Drive spreadsheet, honey, and just and just and just like
maybe a
start.
little T4T secretary.
There we
Right.
go.
Hello. Hello. And we're joking
Uh,
about it, but I think
or a
that
bad
is,
date, or a bad date
Hey,
database.
yeah,
literally.
yeah, yeah. I love what Batcave said in the comments too. I tried to invite you up. If you're not able, it's okay. But I wanted to highlight what you said. He had mentioned interesting concept. I wonder if we can create something new in regards to what accountability looks like. Oh, there you go, brother. Go ahead, and if you want to elaborate on that a bit too.
Yeah, what's going on? Batcave, pronouns he, him. I'm wondering what accountability looks like from a new lens. The practices that I've heard, I've been in and out because I've been on a meeting, but they kind of mirror what white folks do to us. And like, what does care for us look like when we know that only causes additional harm? So like when I mention restorative justice, like what does it look like of that person not being exiled from community when we know that society has not taught a culture of consent? You know what I mean? And what that looks like and how to bring someone in with care and not induce even more harm than they've already
Hmm.
induced on somebody else. You know what I mean? Like my thing is inducing more harm is not going to fix the harm that was caused. You know what I mean? So even with the thing, it's like, okay, now how do we, what does the victim want? You know what
Right.
I mean? And then that's the starting point, because we believe victims hold not. So we start there. And then what does the restore point look like from this person still needs community? Obviously, if they're now exiled, we're now talking about another trans person that's in isolation.
Yep.
And that's not, if we're talking about overarching community. And we've also seen that in the larger society, the uh, consequences for causing harm usually end up harming everybody in the process. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying is if we've already envisioned a world that society has said could not exist, why can't we also be creative in envisioning what it looks like for accountability, care, and restorative justice when it comes to harm being done within community?
Thank you for that. I want to just add really quick, and folks feel free to add into I had a conversation with a couple community leaders before about creating exactly like I think what we're all alluding to. I don't think they took me serious, and I don't think anybody just had the time or the labor to do it. But I was having a conversation with like some type of council body. And I hate using the word council because it just sounds so, but some type of body of leaders in community um that could, I have it all typed. I'm just going to paraphrase, but that could take in these type of situations where accountability, specifically within advocacy and nonprofit spaces, right? And investigate, provide the restorative justice if they're interested in the restorative justice, and work it from there. Um, it's, of course, the thought is just a lot more technical. It's a lot more technical down on paper, but I've had this conversation with folks before on what that could look like. It's just like an accountability space of um of accountability and restorative justice and how that can conceptualize into reality in a way. But again, I think we have a lot of think tanks and conversations, but no actual work is put into it. And how can I expect us as trans people to keep doing the work we do enough in our day-to-day life? So yeah, I wanted to add to that piece because it was very familiar with what you were saying. If anybody else want to add to what Becky was saying,
Um, can I add something?
yeah, please.
So I wanted to add something to what Batcave was just saying about reimagining what accountability could look like. I think that more people take the approach of calling someone out versus calling someone in, especially when it's someone that they actually know or they thought they knew very well. And it's not even so much and maybe restorative justice for that person who experienced the harm when they call someone out in the moment, but then is it really transformative because it's like, okay, so they shared their story, I harmed them, I get it, but then have they really learned about it? Was there a conversation that took place? So that's where I would want to share that maybe depending on the situation, especially if it's something that just occurred or something that someone did and whatever versus someone who has a pattern and who's made it as a decision, calling someone in versus calling someone out. Um, and just really, again, being so intentional about ensuring that they know the impact of the harm that they caused and why it is harmful, but more importantly, knowing that there is such thing as consent, but then if there's certain things that they're needing within these interactions that someone might be willing to provide, you just have to really respect someone's boundaries in the process. And that's how you gain that trust of others or being around others instead of just answering to one's own desires and answering to one's own needs in the moment and not considering reading the entire room, so to speak. But that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Call them hoes out.
I think
Is what I heard. But go ahead, y'all. I'm sorry.
So I hear that, and I will acknowledge like an access point. I started organizing with Black Youth Project 100 um, during the Ferguson uprising. So there was a lot of intentionality around what a restorative justice framework looked like, and like where our community got it all wrong is that we be starting on social media. That is not where anything is restored,
come
called
on,
in, called out. It's a mess. That is a
Yeah.
spectacle. You're
Yeah.
not actually trying to
What?
fix anything. You are here for the tea. You are here for
Yeah.
the kiki, and
Yeah.
not the actual restoration and acknowledgement of what happened. So like
Yep.
I hear that call in, call out, but I have seen in the what I've been watching advocacy work for over a decade and been visible in it for 4 years. If you knew what it was, I've been here a lot longer than that. And the reality is a lot of that has not changed. People call
Mm-mm.
out and there are no action steps, but then they still be in the pictures with people at the event. You know what I mean? They still, and it gives very like, so what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? It's like if we're gonna call it a thing, and that's not to say I have not been in community and there has not been harm done to me, and I've held those people accountable, but it wasn't on social media because that's not what accountability actually looks like. It
Mm-hmm.
actually looks like sitting down and having mature conversations with people. And if things got too heated and you can't have mature conversations, it's about having a mediator there that signs a non-disclosure agreement because motherfuckers is messy.
Come on. Come on.
And not
Right.
just wanting to know the tea, but actually be willing to restore shit. It doesn't mean everybody got to be friends and kumbaya, but you should know what you did was wrong. And you should
Mm-hmm.
understand that if you do it again and somebody finds out, the consequences are going to be bigger.
Mm-hmm.
The first
Mm-hmm.
thing isn't getting exiled from community and all of that, but like I think the one thing that I would say movement for Black Lives got a lot of things wrong when it came to trans community, but they did have a lot of framework around restorative justice, and it wasn't just some bullshit because there was a bunch of allegations.
Mm-hmm.
And they went through, as painful as the process is, they went through the process because they realized nobody in community was disposable.
Mm-hmm.
I agree
Mm.
with what you were saying, and that's what I was just wanting to emphasize. And unfortunately, yeah, many people are definitely still calling out and they're posting it on social media, and it doesn't even match what the behavior was when the behavior took place privately, but then you're doing the so-called accountability portion publicly. It doesn't match. It's not even restorative. It's not even transformative justice. It's not even providing the space for people to really understand the impact of their behavior or their actions. And it's not even going to incentivize the person who caused the harm to correct their behavior. Instead, what it's going to do is it's going to cause them to go into hiding and then reappear somewhere else and then do the same thing over and over again. And then it just really becomes not only a pattern, but then it just really becomes a bigger problem because not everyone is willing to have the conversation the right way and to approach things with an open heart versus being angry or being, just out of order. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yes, and I think Ciora, something that you had mentioned is like I don't think that there's any shortness of like people with the ability to do this or the interest to do it. I honestly feel like there's a shortness of participants, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a shortness of people who are willing to be a part of the process of being held accountable when harm happens. And I think
Mm-hmm.
at the same time we can be short for sure of people, right? As is being said, specifically the people who are just posting on social media, but I'm not really counting them because to me that's not actually caring about restorative or transformative justice. Like something that came to mind for me was and thinking about what I had mentioned about like calling someone out or doing something online, like generally, right, I have gone to the person closest because that is who's going to make the most impact of what you would assume. But I can think of like one restorative justice process of where we went through was like, right, a number of people had said this person had caused sexual harm and had had conversations with each other, right, to be like, we have similar experiences, and we definitely want some action to be changed and action to be taken. And so they asked other people in community who knew this person to be a part of calling them in to have a collective conversation in person. um, People then named the harm that they experienced and also named steps that they wanted going forward. So I think something, again, thinking about like, for me, it's so hard to imagine, even though we're like a smaller community, to really imagine us being like
No, we ain't.
exiled in some way. Because I'm like, again, for me, I'm like every person I know who has caused harm has friends, has families, has plenty of backup. They are never short in that regard. But when I think about like, right, if someone has caused sexual violence specifically, like, wow, time and time again, we see like they're in nightlife, right? So they may be under the influence often while they're doing these things. Part of the justice process for people was, well, we really feel like you shouldn't even be out at the bars. If this is how you're going to be drinking, we'd rather you not be at our events where there's going to be alcohol. But if you come, you have to have someone with you who is essentially your handler, because we
Mm,
don't want you to feel like you cannot access, there's only 3 queer bars in the city. We don't want you to feel like now you can't access any of the 3 spaces that are designated for you. But for people to feel safe and comfortable following your behavior, in order for you to come to these spaces, we ask on behalf of the survivors, of the people who have experienced harm, that you always come with someone, and that you also don't drink while you're there.
mm-hmm,
And also, you don't
mm-hmm,
interact with the people. You can interact with other people in community, but the people you've caused harm to directly, don't approach them, don't ask nobody, don't buy a drink for them, don't do no nothing. So we can still acknowledge that we're going to be in shared space. You're still going to come to the event that's for Black trans people. But honey,
mm-hmm,
please don't come up to me and try to act like we best friends. Please don't come
mm-hmm.
up to me and act like you didn't cause the harm you caused, or act like people don't know you caused the harm that you caused. Please just move with intention and respect my boundaries while we share space.
Yeah. And I wanted to add too, because I do want to keep us a little bit on track, and we could, but I also just want to name it because it's on my spirit. For the folks that do utilize social media to call out their abusers, that's okay. And I'm just going to say that. And I say that's okay because right now we don't have another system for folks to utilize to put these reports in. Besides the police, we don't have an internal system set up yet. And I say yet in hopes of that this conversation right here can continue to be broadened, especially with other trans folks and leadership and community. But that's okay. We don't have a system. None of these systems, um, they're not going to be perfect, and we don't live in a society or a community that is perfect. And if that's what you need to do to get that off your chest and feel better, do that. But I also think it's another call to action for those who have been in the work, who do have access to these different spaces, these different conferences, these different pride events, do set the tone for the spaces that we mobilize in, and the spaces that we activate within to set those, like what was already being said between all of us, set those community guidelines on what can happen here, what cannot happen here, and sticking to that. Not just because it's your good girlfriend or your good boyfriend or your good them and they, that you can just be like, oh no, they're cool. No, nigga. There has to actually be a real tone set on, even if you're a good person, is doing some fucked up shit within community, that there is boundaries. And I think it is the responsibility of those closer to them, to actually say that shit to them and stick to that. So uh yeah, we can go on about this forever. And I don't want us to be stuck on trauma our whole conversation. I think that we can continue to have this conversation in our other sessions. And I think this is a good, if anybody who's watching this out of the 16 folks who are watching right now or who will rewatch this in the future, if this is a conversation that you're serious about and you want to continue having, please email us, DM us to continue to have this conversation because this is important. And I want to make sure, and for me, in my activism journey, I want to make sure that we are leaving advocacy spaces and nonprofit spaces as safe as possible for those that come after us. That's really, really, really important for me to make sure that we're making it as safe as possible, especially for the young baby trans folks that are coming up in the work and being exposed to all of this. Because can you imagine? And I'm sure we've all had this time when you're new to local, state, national trans advocacy spaces, and you're seeing all the beautiful shit that's going on, but you're seeing the fucked up shit that's going on as a newbie to the space and how just depleting that is for the mind, the body, the soul to even want to be involved. And if we're going to invest in our young people, like a lot of us talk about all the time, we have to invest in their safety within advocacy and nonprofit spaces. And I think that's really important for us to continue having conversations about, but not just having conversations, actually making the plans that we were sitting here just talking about, and having these conversations in our respective areas. Um, and I think once we continue doing that, once we have these conversations in Chi-Town, once we have these conversations in Philly, in Pennsylvania, and any of the areas we are, once we have a conceptualized conversation with those in our advocacy spaces, then we can bring that to a larger conversation on a national space when folks are on the same level of thinking and understanding the need. But yeah, Lain, you want to push us along?
Shit, I'm like, I don't know where to push us nowhere but the end. I'm like, it's almost 7 o'clock where I am.
Let's go. Yeah, and I do want to cook my little dinner. Well, not my little dinner. You know, she can cook. But let's see.
Yes, what
So
I can.
I don't want us to close on
Yes, you can
trauma.
nothing but that. What I can say is, like so many other things, you can find love in the nonprofit and advocacy space. I'm kidding. After all of that,
No, but
it's
I think that's a good
not
space to
all
go
awful.
to.
It's not
Yeah,
all awful.
it's not. It's
I think,
not.
like I mentioned, like all other work, there's an opportunity to find some real gold in there. There's some good
Yeah,
people doing the work, and just like all other people, there's some good trans people and some not so good trans people, and they're in all lines of work.
yeah.
Let me say that. But a good partner for you will keep you grounded, whether you're in advocacy or outside of advocacy, because
Yeah.
advocate for yourself how you advocating for others.
At the
Yeah.
beginning of the relationship. At the beginning of the relationship, advocate for yourself. And to piggyback off of what Lane's saying, and anybody feel free to jump in. um, it is still a good space to find someone who is like-minded, who is motivated, and you both or all of y'all, however your relationship status is, are motivated to push the trans community forward. And for me, especially the Black trans community forward in a way that is conducive to not only our movement, but how we love each other. And I've said this before, and I'm gonna say it all the time, but not just how we romantically love each other, but how we communally love each other within the community and actually investing in that. And that doesn't even take money. When we say invest, it doesn't, investing is not always money. Sometimes it's time. Sometimes it's looking at yourself in the mirror and have a conversation with you and how you show up or how you don't show up. And these are still investments that we are investing into the community. So I want us to also be thinking like that when we are thinking about T4T Love within nonprofit advocacy spaces. I'll let anyone else who wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I didn't have too much to add to that specific topic. So if anybody else had anything to add to that specific topic, like you absolutely can.
All right. If not, we'll go into maybe our last little one for the night because I do gotta go make my little roast. Not my little roast. But I think we kind of already talked about this, but let's talk about sex, consent, and liberation. In sex and advocacy spaces, consent and the blurred lines with power, and just a step sexual liberation versus hoe shaming. Okay, let's just call it what it is. Because if you like to fuck, and that's your thing, do your thing. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't be messy and protect yourself. At the same time, but owning this your sexuality unapologetically, ending slut shaming of trans folks. I think these are all important things we need to think about. So anybody want to open us up with sex and advocacy spaces? Don't all just jump at once.
All I'm thinking, I'm like, if you're worried about power and those sorts of dynamics in a nonprofit, if you think about sexual liberation, baby, if you want to play with power dynamics, that's a perfect place to play, right there, right up in your own community space. But something that came to mind specifically for me as someone who thinks about sexual liberation a lot, like one of the spaces I participate in is connected to a larger advocacy like non or like conference that happens every year, and I appreciate the like kink low space that comes out of it because it is so consent forward, because it's a play space made of so many people that are deemed as the top of their field, and even more so because of the identities they hold, and folks always want to, I guess, push against power dynamics. Like, just always be very mindful of, like, even though some of us may be in positions of higher power, access to more social capital, that we are also deserving of love and play. And sometimes that means sometimes we might desire a subordinate. Sometimes that might mean we desire someone that we give resources to. And it doesn't necessarily make you fucked up for wanting to hook up with someone you offer resources to. You absolutely do need to be mindful about boundaries and how positions of power come into play, or how people might see you. Because I know, again, me being in those spaces, it's very consent forward of people being mindful of, like, because I have access to these spaces, I don't want you to feel like you have to join me in this space, like talk to me in this space, play with me in this space, etc. For me, there's such an appeal to that, just because, like, I'm attracted to people who are willing to have those open and honest conversations. So for me, I'm like, I can recognize that we can have those conversations, and I feel more safe, even if you are, even if you're someone who could write me a letter of recommendation. I can recognize that within this space that we're navigating respectfully as peers.
Yeah, I think overall, I think that we should have more spaces that are dedicated to like T4T sexuality. I think the first thing that comes to mind, at least in my experience, is that whenever I really want to express my sexuality, I have to go into either very male spaces or very lesbian spaces. Sorry. And the very first sex party I ever went to, I was a college student, and it was like a play party, and it was only T4T, and that was the first and last time I'd ever been in a space like that. And I think that, like, sometimes it can get difficult when we are trying to date and we are working, or we're doing whatever, and so we're only meeting people in these specific spaces. That can make, like, the power hierarchy a little bit harder, and more difficult to navigate. But I think, like, there's so many of us in all of these major cities, and I don't know, I just be thinking, like, there aren't really many spaces for us to be sexual with one another in, like, a larger kind of capacity. You know, like I used to work at Flex, which is a whole bathhouse. You know, it's like they have bathhouses just for gay men to go and be sexually liberated and do whatever they want to do, right? They don't like, they have that space. We don't have spaces like that. And I think that we should.
And if I can add really quick to a part of what you were saying, a part what Lain was saying, I'll let anybody else jump in. I do still think we have a responsibility with sex, especially in nonprofit and advocacy spaces, and especially with these power dynamics. And I said this a little bit earlier in the live, and I'm gonna just say it again. I don't believe, especially for a woman in my position in a leadership role as like an executive director or someone in a high position, and should be having sex with people that they serve within their organization. I don't think that that is safe. I think there's a lot of just power dynamics that play in place there. Have in my work trans men come in my office and flirted with me and needed services from the organization? Absolutely. Did I shut that shit down immediately? Absolutely. And I think we, with love and kindness and all the things, but I still think we have a responsibility, and I'm saying that from a trans woman's perspective, in the roles that I play, is that we do have a responsibility to also be able to say no. To say, you know, even if it's not right now, not boo, get you an apartment, get you a house first, boo. You know, be out the system for, you know, out of our system for a couple of years or something. But that for me, that's just, I think we have a grave responsibility, especially as folks who are in leadership spaces and roles where people will be admired by who we are and what we do. And some people don't know how to express that admiration but sex. And when you acknowledge that and see that in the person that is navigating you, especially within the trans community, it makes you look at it a little differently. Like for me, it makes me look at it a little differently. I never want to be in a position where, even though the sex might have been good in that moment, but it caused future harm, or they felt as though they had more access to resources within the organization because they was laying up with Big Mama. You know, I never want that dynamic to be played with. So I always carry a boundary with me in my leadership journey and understanding that I have a responsibility as a woman in this work. So I wanted to add that piece back to it as we got in. But anybody else want to go ahead, jump in there, brother?
It's kind of hard for me to have sexual liberation when people are constantly talking about my body in a very particular way. As somebody that is a thicker person, the catcalling has not stopped because I am now a man. The gender just has expanded and the gender identity has expanded. So in spaces where I should feel the most liberated, I am constantly worried about who's checking for this thickness when I'm turning a corner, as opposed to meeting somebody, genuinely like connecting with somebody, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I want to try that. I was told at a space, because we were talking about it, the guy found out I was trans, and he ended up disclosing to another person that I was trans. Now, it was a lot of that excitement about meeting a guy that you had no idea, but you were also attracted. And he also told the straight guy. So, like, he knew he wasn't ruining his chances by, like, or causing more competition. So it was very much, I was like, he was really excited. So I had a level of grace, but I also had to have a conversation with him. At the end of the conversation, he was like, if you ever want to go to the amusement park, I want to ride that ride. And I had to like giggle, because first of all, where the fuck did you get this country ass shit to say to me? Second, bruh, you just talked yourself out of a good time, because I now know that you're way too excited for this, which means then my business is going to be in the street, and then I can't trust you. Like, it shouldn't, sexual liberation should not require an ND fucking A. It shouldn't require that.
Talk about it.
But I do know that there are friends that I have that require NDAs.
Shit, I'm about to get me one.
Hello? It is definitely in the repertoire at this point. Because now I've gotten to the point where, yeah, I'm double named AJ. I'm AJ in the community. When you get to that point, you're easily recognizable. So, like, what my sexual liberation looks like is a lot of being anonymous. There was a place that I had in a virtual space that I no longer can have that sexual liberation, and it was X. I had a naughty Twitter for years, but the minute I started elevating in community, I had to tone down what I was posting, and also making sure that I wasn't putting anything identifiable out there. Like, it's all of these things. Like, it's hard to practice that in those spaces because of somebody wanting to have a one up on you, or have somebody wanting to just say that they had you.
Oh, oh, not the
Not the group
hat.
chat.
Oh, not the group chat.
Oh.
And it literally the other day, I met this bottom, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, my straight friends are gonna love you." I was like, "What?"
What?
I was like, "I don't know if they're straight," and he was like, "Well, I just know my friends, and I know that like you would fulfill, there's." I was like, "And you have the audacity to be telling me this?" To be telling me this and think that I'm gonna go through with whatever you think you want me to go through with?
Was this
Are you?
another trans person?
No, he was cis.
No,
Oh,
no.
yeah, of course.
But it's just like the way that they want to collect us like infinity stones is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We the
And
new
that's it.
Pokemon.
That's another good point. I don't want to take us on the subject too much, but just about how cis folks just fetishize us to the bone. I think that's more of the conversation of why we need to, create and have safer, more conducive T4T spaces, because of how cis folks fucking treat us on yeah, yeah. I just want to touch on that. And sorry you experienced that. That's disgusting.
It's okay,
It's
But
not, but
there,
I hear you.
yes, there's actually a topic I wanted to bring to the space, and of
Let's
course
do it.
it can go to the next live, but I just made a TikTok about this. I feel like right now this discourse in the community that like only cis straight white people or white people in general are the only ones that can give us like genuine love because they have the social capital to do so. I would love to talk about that because that's been going around the community a lot and it's been really bothering me.
Oh, baby.
I'm questioning
Oh,
what community you around with you because that just sounds too Caucasian for me.
It's
Stop
breaking
that,
up a little bit back here.
nephew. What is your algorithm giving?
I'm screaming. Batcave, we can hear you. You
I'm on
turn
the
it down.
highway.
He said, give
I
me a.
mean, what is my algorithm? You know what? I don't even know. I don't know. Maybe it started off with like the Laverne Cox discourse because I made a couple videos about that, but I've just been seeing like, a lot of trans people of color date white people because they have the social capital to do so, and the people of color don't, want to date us because they blah 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 blah. And I'm thinking like, is this something that we're actually teaching like the younger trans community? Like, is this actually what people believe out here? Like, is this like a widespread ideology? Like, what's going on? Like,
No, this is not a ride. And I'll add my just little 2 cents, and I'll let y'all jump in. This is first of all, I don't think this is widespread. I think these are folks within our community. Let me be serious. I think these are folks in our community who are just dealing with some real deep psychological pain of being accepted and being loved within community, and are looking to white people for that love. Me? No. It's not, it has never gave that. When I was a sex worker, sometimes I would get my coin from the white man. But now, in my liberation, mm-mm, he couldn't touch me, couldn't sniff my black ass. So I don't think it's a widespread thing. I do get concerned when those conversations hit like a mainstream platform and they're having those conversations where young folks is like looking at it and watching it and maybe being inspired by it. That has always been concern for me, but I do still think it comes from a deep psychological self hatred of one's black self, and I'll leave it at that and let anyone else add into it.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm on my way to the airport. But I did want to add to something, Ciora, to something that you said about being a leader and being proposition. What I learned during my time of leading an organization that centered Black trans women, specifically those coming out of X work and things like that, I had to tell, they thought that that's the only way that they were going to get the resources.
Right.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
want to just like level set there of like there are people that are literally taking advantage of community members, and sometimes it may be like they're really into you, but they, from what I've experienced, these people have disclosed to me that they had to other times to get access to the resources, that if they didn't, whatever was promised to them as a resource was no longer promised.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of like access points of I had to literally tell girls like, yo, I'm gonna get you this certification. You ain't gotta do nothing. Like, yo, chill. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to be on my phone. You don't need to be liking my Instagram pictures. I don't care. I need you to fill out this application. I need you to take this Zoom call.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I need you to do your classes. And then the certification is yours. But a lot of times I got a lot of push of like, was there anything else I could take care of you for? No, no. Girl, I need my metrics. I need my numbers. What you can do for me, complete your certification. So I
Shoot.
have proof of concept. That's
Yeah.
what I need you to do.
I need an impact statement.
Yeah, I need you to finish this
Yeah.
so we can work on your resume and you can get hired. That's what I
Yeah.
need you to do. I don't need you to caress my chest. I don't need you to tell me I'm handsome. I don't care about any of that. I
Yeah.
need you to finish. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight that there's two ends to it of yes, there were some people that literally just made they pass because they wanted to make they pass. And also there were some that thought in order to get access to resources, to housing, to food, the connection that they had to provide over additional services.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add on to that a little bit because earlier we were talking about accountability within predators and community work. I think like that's why it's even so much more important for us to find them and hold them accountable because it is tainting the work itself. You know, like no one should ever feel like they have to do schmexual services in order to get the basic necessities that they need to survive, right? And the more we keep people in spaces that are doing community work that are requiring those things, the worse it's going to be for us who are trying to, you know, actively reach people and get them to trust us. And so, like, yeah, I think, ooh, just yes. Even outside of the little babies coming into the community, like so many people are being harmed by predators being in these leadership positions. So many people. So it's just so important.
I and to your point, back in, I've definitely had folks come into come into our organization asking for resources, and literally thought that was it. Like thought that was the mode. And I'll speak for my intersection, and that's what I speak best on. Is that there were a lot of trans women who were a part of this, and not to say that we the only ones, our community is the only ones that are perpetuating this harm. However, I have certainly had folks come into the organization and said that this happened to them from trans women. And not just trans men, non-binary folks, and other trans women, right? In spaces that are trying to get services, or care from trans-led organizations or trans-led spaces, who this is happening to. So I wanted to highlight that. Anybody else wanted to add to this conversation?
I
And
appreciate
y'all,
you sharing that too, Batcave, because that I'm like, and everybody sharing that just brought it back to me. I was like, I've had trans people of all identities try to do that shit to try and get resources. I know some of these niggas. I've been like, nigga, if you don't put your shirt on, we both got
yeah,
titties. What do you mean? We both done got types of. Who'd you showing them stars off to, boy? Get out of here. Put your clothes on and fill out this form. Right, exactly. Like we're just trying to, but right, people are trying to, as much as we are trying to help folks are trying to help themselves, and they have
yep,
systems that they have been able to meet their needs through doing these other things.
yep. And I challenge us. I challenge those that are watching. I challenge those that are um on this video to when we. I know this is a quote we hear all the time, but if you see something, say something. If you see something, say something. Actually, be willing to step in and advocate for our siblings when this is happening. I don't care how popular they are. I don't care how many followers they got on Instagram. If you're not going to do the due diligence to do or say something, then you're really not here for the liberation of our people. You're just taking up space when somebody else could be there actually doing that work. So I want to keep us encouraged as I encourage this roast.
I wanted to add a caveat. Make sure that the people that are being harmed want you to say something
Yes. Oh,
with
yes.
that.
Hmm.
There's too many times people call out somebody and the victims don't want to say nothing. They don't
Yep.
want to be involved in it. And then it ends up being where there's an unwanted pressure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that is a big, like when we were talking about like exiling or people removing people from space, like something that comes to mind is like, again, in the situation specific to the one I was in, like, right, when you're trying to bring about justice, like that is about directly the people who have been harmed. And so for me, I've always tried to be very cognizant of like, right, if this person has been harmed by this person and they have apologized, they have made their amends, and now they feel like, justice has been served, I really have to do the work within myself to figure out,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? To acknowledge, like, I can't be what is my place to be mad on behalf of this person who was actually harmed, who has now made amends? Like, right, if this person has made amends and now says, I am fine with this person participating in space, like, who am I to now be like, actually, fuck that person completely for the rest forever? They got to go in trash because they hurt this person. If the person who has been harmed says this person can be brought back into space, then it's part of my job and my work as well to help reintegrate this person back into the space.
I don't think we gotta fuck with them. I say that respectfully. I don't think we gotta fuck with them because, like, we know what they did. So if the victim forgives them,
They
beautiful.
ain't got shit to do with
But
me.
but the advocate for they ain't got shit to do with me, because I'm still gonna be navigating my work and happen to deal with you. I think sometimes we forget that we're human beings doing this work. We are all human beings doing this work, and yes, we got boundaries and shit that we gotta have with the work or whatever, whatever, whatever. But we're still human beings, and I'm not sitting around a fire and singing "Kumbaya" with somebody I know, great somebody like a year ago. I don't care how long ago it was. That's just me. Maybe I still need to grow. That's just for me. I can't. I can't.
I mean, I think
Diora, I was feeling the exact same way. I'm like, maybe I need to be better
Yeah.
because I am not that type of person. I'm sorry. If I know that you've hurt somebody, I cannot trust you in a space. Therefore, I'm not going to help you come back into the space. You got to do that on your own.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. No. But maybe, like I have been working on my own empathy, and what compassion looks like for myself and my community. But as of right now, like
I ain't there.
especially if I know you, if I like the person, who you hurt, they could absolutely forgive you, but I may not. I may not.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's for ultimately every person to ultimately decide what they can do in that regard for that person. I don't think it is. I don't think it is anybody's obligation to do anything in that regard. But again, me trying to center the person who has been harmed, trying to at least for me, trying to respect their wishes, and I think especially like like the reason why it brings up such immense emotions is because like there aren't solutions to sexual violence. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
when you think about like transformative justice circles and like organizations and etc., so many of those organizations work with survivors of crimes that are not sexual. Like they do violent crimes, but as soon as sexual violence is involved, they actually don't support that work, and that's because
Yeah.
it is so much more emotionally charged. It is so much more intricate. There's so much more in it than just like I shot. Someone accidentally got shot in a drive-by shooting. Versus like, right, how do we actually address that? Not only are you directly harming someone, but there is an indirect community impact of harm when sexual violence is inflicted on any member of our community.
Yeah. All right. Uh, I think we can. I do. Before we do, I think another good topic we can discuss is the one right up under that lane about poly relationships and uh poly relationships and monogamous relationships. And it still brings us into the same topic, but diving a little deeper in that in our advocacy and nonprofit spaces, um, and with poly and monogamy, uh, what do you think works better for our community and why? I would love to know what y'all think about that. Um, and let me see where counting points. Yeah. So within our activism and nonprofit spaces, we encounter all different kinds of relationships. People who are monogamous, people who are polyandrous, uh, people who are poly in all forms. What do you think is what's my question? I lost my train of thought. I'm thinking about that roast, honey. I'm so hungry. Um,
Girl, it sounds like we need to wrap the fuck up instead of
well, let's get
keep
this.
talking.
We can get this one more out. We can get this one more out, and then we can wrap it up, and then we can wrap it.
The question was, which one's
Um,
better for us? Should we be monogamous? Should we be poly? Should we be doing something the fuck else?
right. What's y'all thought?
Child, do what's best for you.
Hmm.
Truthfully, if it's not working with you with monogamy and you find yourself doing a lot of stepping out, you need to have some internal conversation with yourself on what that actually means for your relationship type and like maybe you're not monogamous. I'm an honest hoe, and I say that shit everywhere I go.
All we asked
Why?
for.
Why do I say that? Is because when you talk to me, you then might be attracted to me. You are also going to find out that I also have a partner. You're also going to know that the buck stops here. You're going to learn boundaries. You're going to learn the ways to approach me. And at that point, I personally think like polyamory gave me that fire, that power to be able to even define what pleasure um, engagement even looks like with other people. Oh, speaking of, hey, babe.
Hmm.
How y'all
That seems
doing?
so messy. That seems so messy on my behalf, but it wasn't. It wasn't. I just happened to see my sibling in there waiting for the in the request.
yeah, I've been poly for or non-monogamous, I would say. I've tried a lot of different styles of relationship, um, and I think that it was really important for me to do so. I think it was important for me to be in my monogamous relationships and my polyamorous relationships and my mix in between the two to figure out kind of like what I want now, like as I'm actually looking to be in a serious relationship. But I think similar to Bandit, like I've always been a pretty honest hoe. So whichever road I go, whatever route I go, I'm gonna be honest about it with whoever approaches me. Um, I do. I mean, I think going back to like what I had said in the beginning, I've always been wary about being in a romantic relationship or a sexual relationship with my trans man friends, exes, or dating, like just how small the community could be. So, like, I don't know if I'll ever get to a space where it's like, I will advocate for all of us to just be dating each other or all polyamorous. Like, like I don't know. But I do think having that space to explore, and I love the fact that our community is so open to exploring different types of relationship styles. Um, but yeah, and I also have to drop. So thank you so much for having me up here. I can't wait for y'all next one. I'll be here.
Yes, thanks for coming.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Anything else on this topic? I'll just jump in real quick. I think I'm a polyamorous person. I think I still believe in the practice of it, but I had to check my emotions more than anything. I think that's what it really was. I had to check my emotions around being poly. Do I still practice? Of course. Am I an honest hoe too? Of course. And but I think like as I navigated poly from coming from like pretty much monogamous relationships, I just was like, I was okay with me doing my thing and having other partners, but when it came to my partner, it was like so that's something I still gotta check that with me. I'm still navigating that. Yeah, I'm still navigating that.
Okay, so
So
come
yeah,
on, natural
that's
emotion.
what it is. That's what it is.
The
And
natural
I try to
emotion.
check it. I be trying to pump myself up, like, bitch, don't be worried about that. Be all right. You got your partner. But I'd be like, oh, that's Beto. And I just can't, I just don't know. So I just gotta, I don't know. I gotta figure out what I want. But I think taking this time being single for me, in this single journey that I'm in now is definitely more of a personal healing journey for me. And I'm just, still dating and doing my thing, but I don't think I just don't have I'm not interested in putting any title on it. I just want us to see what happens. And I know folks have expectations when they're jumping into anything, and that's okay. But for me, I'm just like, let's just see where it goes. Go from there, and see what happens. So, yeah, I'll let someone else jump in.
I guess I will say, and I know it's been a while since I said something.
You're
I think
fine.
that it's best for a person to just do what's best for them. I personally don't have my own opinion when it comes to the topic of being monogamous versus non-monogamous because I know that there's so many different dynamics that take place in relationships and love comes in so many different forms and trust comes in so many different forms and witnessing love means knowing that love can take place between more than just two people or it can just take even just as little as one person. Now, as for me, I am monogamous. However, those who are non-monogamous, I support it 100%. If you're in love and everyone is in love and the relationship is healthy, I'm here for it. So that's just my take on that. So I'm not against any type of dynamic as long as the love is pure and as long as the love is as as authentic and you can feel it when you are with the couple or with the people who are involved in the relationship.
Hmm. Thank you, Lady Love. I'm cracking the fuck up at your comment. And is that what other trans women see? Or, baby, if a girl gonna climb my back, or I'm gonna climb her back, that's gonna be my goddamn business. But I'm into it all. I can do, yeah, yeah. She's into it all. Okay.
Evolution.
Listen.
I think that I want to, because it was the way you asked the question that made me push the button. In the beginning, you asked directly like about advocacy spaces and us as advocates. And genuinely, I think from being an advocate and being monogamous and being an advocate and being polyamorous, I think that more of us advocates do, and not just trans, but more of us advocates do need to explore what polyamory looks like. And in large form, it's because of the way our work is set up. Like my boyfriend and I live together, but we a lot of times don't get to spend time with each other because of how our work is set up. So like even if I've been offered jobs clear across the country, and I've been like, I don't know that I want to move that far away from my baby, but also other career stuff pops up here. So I think that if you're a person like me and AJ, I'm sorry, me and Bandit, for example, who are all about like growing and maturing and understanding how to and learning how to do that as a couple, as opposed to being selfish as some people can be in monogamous or polyamorous relationships and not explain what they want for their career. Um, I think that is why polyamory really does work for him and I. But also, I think that advocates who have ambition, who have drive, who have all of these things going for themselves, and then find themselves saying, "Oh, I want love." Figure out what love looks like for you
Mm-hmm.
for a career, because
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that him and I had to figure out truthfully was our careers, because neither one of us is going to tell the other person not to go after the bag. Neither one of us is going to tell the other person not to pursue school and all of those things, right? But we have to have those conversations about how that works. Because again, if one of these jobs said, AJ, anyways, wanted you to work across the country again, he's come to me and be like, how would you feel about that? And I'm like, I want you to pursue your career. We just got to figure out how that relationship is going to work. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that us already being polyamorous and already having done a long distance relationship kind of helps us out figure out how to do it and navigate it. But as a collective, I do think that trans folks, especially us, have the ability to love really deeply and have the ability to love on multiple people just naturally. To your point, though, Sierra, um, when in our first year, jealousy was a really, really big thing, my love. Really big. Real nasty big. real ugly. But see, as an Aquarian, I have to admit, as a mature Aquarian, I had to own the fact that, oh, bitch, you're just jealous. And then I had to have a conversation with him, but also you can have as many conversations with your partner as you want. But you have to have real conversations with yourself, like, girl, what are you jealous about?
Yeah.
What about that person is making you jealous? Or what about it is making you jealous? And it really was, I wasn't jealous of the person, I just wanted attention.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the reality of polyamory is that in having those conversations with him living in California, all I needed to do is have upfront conversations about you over there and I'm over here. You have a whole partner,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm over here hugging all these teddy bears you keep buying me because I love stuffed animals. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that for folks who are monogamous and that are listening to this and are like, oh, maybe I should. Don't just should because someone said, oh, this is a way to do it. There are multiple ways to be polyamorous, and including solo poly people, which is something Ciora you may need to do research on, because that
Mm-hmm.
may be what. you saw your
Team
sis
solo
jumping the screen.
poly.
Yeah,
He a
you need to
solo
look into
poly.
solo polyamory. You
Let me
do.
put let me note that down.
Yes, my
A
love.
Uh-huh.
solo poly
Yeah,
girl.
a lot of
And,
people who are very emotion driven, and especially in relationships with the people that they love, would operate better in a solo poly dynamic, because it allows for you to love multiple people and be honest, like, I
mm-hmm.
love on you, I love on you, I love on you. Now how they bring it back to you is completely different, but again, to your point earlier, with polyamory there has to be those boundaries, and you have to know what yours are going into it, regardless of if you're dating a monogamous person, if you're dating a polyamorous person. You have to know
Mm-hmm.
what you are going to put up with and what you're not. So for you, I
Mm-hmm.
would definitely say look into that solo poly, so that
I
way when
am.
these
I
boys and
am.
these folks come up to you and be like, "Oh, I'm interested." Well, listen, because this is what you're walking up to. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw too, Lady Love, she had asked in the comments. I think what you were saying, and tell me if I'm wrong, sis. She was saying like just in poly relationships was like my partners being with other trans women, my problem. In those moments. And if that's what you were saying, I think that's what you were saying, sis, after I was reading your other comments.
Hmm. Right.
I did.
What was it?
Right. See, right. I was thinking about that. That's a good question, just in the general sense of like, right, if you are in a T4T relationship, how do you feel when your partner is dating a cis person of your same gender identity? Or, right, do you only feel jealousy when it is the same gender identity as your
That's
own?
crazy. Y'all just clocked
Do
my
you
tea.
do you really
Can
want to
y'all
know
hear
how I
me?
feel about that
Literally,
one?
it's just femme
Do you
folks.
really want to
It's
know
Can
how I
literally
y'all
feel
hear
just
about
me?
mine
that
over
one?
here, and then they come over
Yeah,
here with their shit, and I be like, "Girl,
yeah,
I was
yeah. We
reading a
can hear
book."
you. We can hear you, sis.
Oh, okay.
I, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that one.
But isn't that crazy though? That's really wild if you think
It's
about
not
it.
crazy. And I'm gonna tell you why
Well,
it's not
that's
crazy
it,
in
girl.
a
It's not
sense.
crazy. Go ahead,
It's
sis.
not crazy because no shade, that's how I was, but also in the sense of we have trauma around our experience. So we have to understand
Hmm.
that. And we do understand that, hey, I can understand a genuine connection versus a connection of malice. And what
Hmm.
that looked like is that some women, hey, we can have like my man could go out and deal with this trans woman, but I know in deep down that she don't mean me no good, and she trying to steal my
Hmm.
man in the process, right? Even though we have that me and him have that understanding that that's not absolutely going to happen. But at the same time, you never know. But also,
Yeah.
there is a boundary that is set in that moment because I know what she mean behind it because I speak her language as a woman. So you know what I'm saying? So that's what we have to understand.
Baby,
Thank you.
you said that. You said, and that's what it is. Thank you, sister, for saying that out loud. That's what it is. There's some other levels to it around just safety around a lot of things. But yeah, yeah. I think that's really what it had to do with. Yeah, yeah,
No, but I know because it's like I have that same feeling. Like it's not me policing my relationship or policing my man. It's me protecting my relationship,
yeah,
protecting me, and protecting my man. So
yeah.
it's levels to this shit because
That
honestly, sometimes people don't respect the relationship. So you have to show them how to respect your relationship.
Yeah,
Baby.
yeah,
I was
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Because we ended up there. Uh huh. Yeah, 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 yeah. See,
And I also don't want to be out in these advocacy streets fighting the girls about my man. And that's another piece. I know me.
I
I
was
know me. Like
Fiora,
I'm
can
on
I
my
say
healing
this?
journey. I'm doing all of this. I'm
I
doing that.
can't
But I
see.
don't,
I was
baby.
just
Fiora,
talking
you
to
have no
Fiora last
idea.
night. I told her trust your intuition because right sometimes I know I be feeling like I can trust my intuition and I know my other shit and then sometimes the girls are like not that one boo boo and maybe I'm a little naive or just
Right.
I don't have the same intuition built because I'm not on that same wavelength. But when there's the girls, trust your intuition because if you feel
Always.
something, there's a reason you feeling something, and tell your man or your they or your whatever.
Uh huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
Because
it ain't just the
Kids
trans
have the
women.
why.
Yeah.
no, it's not at all.
Cause
And I
baby,
think that,
listen.
and I think that that's the shitty side of it, right? Especially within the trans community, that people project that it's the femme side that does all of this stuff, that's all of these problems. Anyone who hasn't even an ounce of femininity exuded, they're the problem. But in the reality, and this isn't a tit for tat, it's a reality check. If the reality is that if a woman is acting like that, it's not solely because she chooses to. And when we start having the conversations about why are you acting like that? Did someone impact you? Did someone say something? Did someone do something? And you find out they're in a relationship. Oh, your man did it. No, bitch, he ain't do it. He fine. He sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody else did
Mm-hmm.
it. But that's also that going back to the point of like AJ truthfully doesn't trust men around me, and it's not that I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because men can be around me and I'm fine. I've grown up around them. I'm cool with that. But men ain't shit at times, right? So the reality is, whether you're trans, whether you're cis, men just ain't shit at times. But to the
Mm-hmm.
point that Ciora keeps saying, the girls be the problem too, because with him, Ciora, I promise you, I tell him all the time when he goes to these conferences and he tells me that someone who smiles in my face does something. I'm
Yeah.
like, AJ,
And I be
AJ,
it.
AJ, I will get on the flight. I don't know where I'm gonna find it, but I don't care that you in Atlanta, California.
Yeah.
AJ, you need to tell that girl to stop playing. Because
Yeah.
if you don't, the next time I see her, I have to, and it's not gonna be a
Yeah.
conversation that she likes. Because she
Like
gonna
don't
expect all of
smile.
this fairy to show up, but I
Yeah.
promise you that the bear gonna be there, meeting her at
Yeah.
the door.
Like don't smile in my face like you got one up on me. If you fucking my man, you fucking my man. All right. But don't make it seem like you got one up on me
Right.
in that same situation. That's where
Right.
it's just like,
It's
But
girl,
that's
just
you
where,
doing too
yeah,
much.
that's where I draw the line at. And honestly, no shade, that's where I tell my men. I'm like, okay, I understand that we do these things, but ain't no bitch gonna have one up over me. That's
Right.
what I'm trying. I'm the main partner. I'm the one
Hmm.
that called the shots. I'm the one with your children. So don't play with
Hmm.
me like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and like no, and that like honestly,
Those
I'm
are
just
real
being, and
boundaries.
those are
Yeah.
real boundaries. Like, cause some girls will sock it to us like, oh well, bitch, I know what you're. Okay, well, girl,
Uh-huh.
I know that y'all are
Right.
messing around, and I'm okay with it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
not doing nothing special, boo. Like, 'cause-
But it's just that energy. It's that energy.
It
right?
is.
Um,
It
and
is.
That
I've
I that
definitely
the
been
girls
there.
just give off, right?
That high
And
school
it's a
shit,
But
safety
like girl,
mechanism on
watch
our
it.
end.
but it's not. I just want to take it off, get off of our sisters' back for a minute, because it ain't
Right?
just the girls.
No, it's
I've sat
not.
my
I've sat
turn.
around.
My
I've,
turn.
I've sat around a lot of my trans brothers who do the same thing. I know
Oh,
I've been in relationships. I mean, past relationships I've been in, and a lot of y'all know, but or a lot of the folks that are on the call know that my last relationships were trans men, and the trans men that I would they didn't like me around no other trans men. Oh, they didn't even want me to be
Mm,
working with them, be around them,
wow.
and
I'm too non-binary for this shit. I don't know
listen.
what it is.
I'm
I
sorry.
thought
These
And
niggas
y'all
I'm a
can't
niggas,
be
little too
y'all
binary
niggas
withdrawn
just
shit.
bringing
myself.
They
pitchforks.
say, baby, you is not going to be around the trans men, honey. Pack it up and come on home. I was just like, now wait a minute.
What?
I mean,
Now wait a
people
minute.
people tell me it all the
This
time.
is new to
People
me.
tell me all the
Yeah.
time.
No,
They're
no, no,
like,
Oh
no,
"You
no,
yeah.
no, no.
crazy for bringing
Trust
Oh
people
yeah.
me,
in here."
Oh yeah.
trend.
And I'm not. I don't. And
Yeah.
don't listen. From my experience, they get a little crazy. They get a little crazy
Hmm.
if
Right.
you are around the other trans men. But I think there's a lot of projecting in that because they knew what
Right.
they know what their siblings be doing. They don't mind sleeping with a married woman. They don't mind sleeping in messy
Right.
relationships.
Exactly.
I mean, they don't mind it. They
That's
don't mind it.
wild.
So they know that this is very possible. But I think it also has to do
But
with
the trans men be
her own.
catty too. We not
They
gonna
do.
we not
We
gonna act
all do.
like they're not
Yeah.
like right. All of us are
Oh
catty,
my! Oh my!
and
Oh,
it
oh my
and it's
God!
like, and I'm not saying that in a demeaning, demoralizing way. You know, I'm just saying like at the end of the day, we as people who are trans up here ourselves know how our trans people do in our relationships. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
like we all can be catty, we all can be conniving and get the things that we want. And also no shade, to be honest, like when other trans people see trans folks in relationships and they see that it's going well or successful, however they might see it in their vision, they want a piece of that too and think that they can get the same thing that you got. But it's like, okay, maybe you can, but you may not have it the way I have it. So don't ever sit here and like shock it to me because you don't know what I'm going through, baby. You
Hmm.
don't. You
Hmm.
don't.
Also,
You
it
know,
gets to a
find your own
point.
piece of happiness.
Hmm. And also, it gets to a point because I've gotten here before where, baby, you can have them.
Right.
You can have them. I'm not even going to go through this before because I already had a piece already lined up that was coming up the street. So, baby, you can have them. We're not even going to. We're not even going to go here anymore.
Correct.
Um. So no. Yeah. Thank you, sis, for calling this out because I needed that. I was lying to
Right.
myself. I wasn't telling myself the truth.
Yes, tell yourself the
Right.
truth.
But no,
Shit.
and it's just levels to it. Like honestly, sometimes it can be a jealousy aspect of like just seriously that it's just like she just want to have fun with him or they want to have some type of connection experience, but many of times when it's really like we've been here, we've been in the streets, whether it's been wherever we've been in the streets, we know how a girl get down sometimes, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. We
And
know the
it's
girl.
like,
We
and
the
it's not
girls. We
nice,
know the
we are the
girls.
girls, so we know the girls, so
Hmm.
I get, and that's something to talk about, you know what I'm saying? Like it is some malicious intent when
It
sometimes they're trying to
is.
get our men. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
If I
poly
may,
or not, poly or
And
not.
poly or
Let's be
not.
clear.
if
And
if I
even to the ones who are in monogamous relationships playing poly while they at the conference.
Hmm.
Who said that?
They're not playing poly. That's called just being open.
But
child,
who
Well,
said
these
that?
no, these
If you're
niggas is
gonna be
cheat.
an
No,
honest hoe, be an
these
honest
niggas is
hoe.
cheating.
right.
That is being an honest hoe. You just
These
got
niggas
it.
is
It's about
cheating.
it's
We
about
Yeah.
need to
the
call. We need to call it what it is. They're cheating. They're cheating on their fucking partners. Like we're
If
not
their
even
partner
gonna
does
keep.
not know or has agreed to these situations, it is therefore
Yeah,
cheating.
it's cheating.
I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I challenge y'all to look at how being open can look and how consent can be agreed upon between people. Because things we define as cheating, other people may not. I'm not gonna say that I'm here for
But
people who are cheating, because I'm not here for people
Right.
who are
but
cheating.
But let
so
me ask this
You said, but
question.
I know
So,
cheating
hold
as
on, man.
hoes.
but can I ask you this question real quick? So, if
Hmm.
a person is truly in a poly relationship with their partner, and well, okay, no, scratch that. So, if a person is saying that they are poly, correct?
Yes.
Isn't a poly relationship built on like trust,
And
understanding, and
communication.
agreement?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
being open is
Okay.
not being
So,
open
if
is
they
not
don't have,
necessarily a polydynamic.
say that again.
So
Being open is not necessarily a polydynamic. There are open monogamous couples.
so
Okay.
may I for 2.5 seconds? Monogamous ish is a thing. Um, and it is literally the opening of a monogamous relationship based upon agreements, but it's
Hmm.
not full polyamory. So like yes, and I do want to say that like if you're married and you're stepping out and you're lying at conferences, you're cheating.
Hmm.
And
Can
Right.
y'all
then
please
to
go
go
ahead?
back just a tad, the boys are the worst with it because we come from a very particular experience. There's a lot of us that got to sit around mama and them when they was talking about how they crept around on daddy and the uncles and all of that shit too. So you think that shit bypassed us? No, it did not. We actually learned the game from the source of the game, and we're a little bit better at it than our sisters, unfortunately. And
Sometimes.
so
Well,
Sometimes.
we're making the assumption
hold on.
there,
All
but
right.
I
What?
don't
Okay.
I don't know.
When are we
Hold
closing this
hold on.
conversation? Because a
Hold
nigga
on.
actually
And
got
some
places to be.
sometimes, but the biggest part of that is like the reason I really don't trust dudes around trend is because a lot of these dudes have this thing about topping people and being violent while doing
Mm.
it. And
hmm
if I'm all the way real, we live in Philly where that shit is commonplace.
Mm.
place of brotherly love.
Yeah, they get really
What the
silly in
nigga say?
Philly. I miss those days. Oh, go ahead. That ain't what we talking about though.
Come
Mm.
back, baby. Come back. My word.
All right, y'all. We are going to get ready to wrap it up. Just want to do some last minute little things. Trend, please take this space to talk about the 22nd, September 22nd, inviting our panelists and things up to the space.
September 22nd.
What am I talking about?
Girl, it is next week. It is September 4th. You said 22nd, and I was like, girl, where we going? We doing it again? You know,
Yes.
I'm down to present with you twice, but I
I'm
was like, that's wait, we just saying fuck it. It's USCH.
hungry. It's been a long day, chat. Next week, or in a couple.
I got you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So listen, everybody, to the 12 folks and anyone who's going to share this or watch this later. Next week at the United States Conference on HIV and AIDS, Ciora and I will be presenting September 4th. If you're looking for us, we're during the 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. block, and we will be talking about T4T Love. We will have a panel, but we'll also have some edutainment where I'll be, giving out the facts and the stats that the CDC is not necessarily trying to hide, but they're not doing the best at it, letting trans people know where their numbers are being counted. And then I'll also be talking about different things that non-binary people can do to make sure that they're counted, because the data that I'll be giving has nothing about. So if you're at USCHA, definitely stop by. Definitely come be a part of it. And if you want to be a part of the panel because you're a T4T person, and want to talk about your experience, you can DM either one of us, and we'll get the information over to you. And then we're gonna go to I don't know who to go to. Bandit. Oh, she's back, just like that. Hello. I stopped
The
talking and you
bandit.
disappeared, and I was like, I don't know who to go to next. But then you
I'm
came back.
Mike. I'm Mike. All right. Thank you so much for that. And y'all, if you're at USCHA, please come out and check us out. If you know folks that would be good to be a part of the panel, please connect with us, DM us. We would love to have y'all. And yeah, thank y'all so much, everyone who joined the conversation with us tonight, who jumped up on the call, who added to the comments. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will be again doing this every 2 weeks. We'll be on TikTok. We're trying to spread it around because folks have been like, girl, do it on Facebook or do it on Instagram. So we're figuring it out and see what we can have it in all spaces. But again, just appreciation of y'all attention, y'all time, y'all energy into the conversation. And yeah, I'll get our guest off of here and me and Lain will close this out. Thank y'all for
Good
coming.
night, y'all. Good
Good
night.
night,
Good night. Good
y'all.
night.
Thank you for having me. It
Yes,
was
of
nice
course. Thank you for
making
coming.
my
I'm gonna drop because I don't
TikTok
like getting kicked
debut
out.
on a live.
I'm
On
glad.
debut.
All right.
Let me drop out of here.
I'm trying to do it for y'all, but child, hold on.
We're
I don't know
gonna
how
have to
to
take
drop
us out
out.
with the tag.
Hold on, I'm
Oh,
trying.
here we go.
Okay, there we go. All right. Thank y'all for coming. Thank y'all for joining us. Lain, do you have any last words before we get out of here and close out?
I just put in the chat, but if you haven't, check out the book Love in a Fucked Up World by Dean Spain. And one of the quotes from there is revolutionary empathy creates a touch both communally and personally.
Awesome. Thank you for
We're
that.
talking about revolutionary love and T4T relationships.
Come on. Revolutionary love.
Okay.
Well, this has been T4T Love.
Yeah, I don't got the other line of the
Yeah,
tag.
this has been T4T Love. Real talk, real life, real us. Thank y'all again for coming and joining us tonight. May your night be blessed and prosperous. And may you find the love that you deserve, whether it's in advocacy or nonprofit or just life. Find your T4T love and be healed doing it. We love y'all.
Love y'all.
Is that a watermelon? We'll talk after this.
Bye, y'all.